In progress.
So we don't hear your background information or background noise. Somebody's got some music going on.
Good evening, everyone. Steve Worcester.
Hey, Steve.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, remember as you're zooming in to mute yourself, please, if you are not a township board member. Thank you. Is the American flag on there as a share screen?
No, I don't see it, Ann.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Is that you, Bill?
Yep, that's me. Hi, Ann.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, hi, Jamie.
Hello.
Hello. I think we're still waiting for Tim. Oh, there he is. Speak of the devil. Uh, and then maybe Jeremy still? I don't think I've seen him yet.
Hi, Ann.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Not bad. There's Jeremy.
Good.
I saw Tammy in. I think that's 7:02. Hey, Jeremy, are you there?
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
I am here.
Come on, I need some background.
Oh, I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. I picked the new one just for you.
Okay.
Are
thank
you ready? Are you ready?
I need it. I need to smile.
Here we go. Ah.
Oh, that was
Ooh,
nice.
very nice.
You're right. Correct for you.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Okay. I think everybody's here then, right?
Yep, looks like we got everybody.
Okay. Great. Make sure everybody that, everybody does have the ability to unmute themselves, but if you're not a board member, please mute yourself. And if I don't see you muted, then I'll just hit the mute button just so we don't get any background noise until it's time for public comment. And then you can unmute yourself then. Okay, so with that, let's call this regular meeting to order. It's July 12th, 2021 at 7:03. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Right.
Guy's an asshole.
I
Pledge
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 allegiance
allegiance to the
To
flag
flag
the flag
with the United States of America
of America.
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands,
stands,
Stand
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
Okay. Right, and with that, roll call, please, Josh.
Mr. Cummings,
Here,
Miss McGuire,
Here.
Mr. Spencer,
Present.
Mr. Palmer,
here,
Mr. Sutton here, Mr. Wusterbarth,
Present.
Miss Richards,
Here. Switch to the agenda. Everybody see the agenda now?
yes,
Okay, sorry, I have an echo in the building. I'm not sure why. Let's make sure. Okay, with that, I know that we have at least one agenda addition that was emailed. I believe Tammy sent that out yesterday. We have the Paul Bunyan Furtaw Field request from the chamber. I'd like to place that under other as number 3 as the chamber request.
yeah, and I would like to may have one addition, if I might. The information is in the packet. It's for approving the RCL construction contract for the sewer project. That's on page 12 of the packet.
Uh-huh.
If we can add that to the agenda so we can, as number 4 under other, so we can approve that contract.
Right.
We had to wait until after the capital improvement bond resolution is passed, but I think we should get that lined up. The bid openings were back in April, so.
Right, separated. I know that Tammy actually spoke with Rick just a little after 6, and he was planning on addressing that under the, underneath the resolution component, but we probably should separate it out.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry, I'm getting like an echo in the hallway. Let me just see if somebody can close their door. It's hard to hear. Why it's echoing then? Sorry, I don't know why it's echoing. Everybody's closed, so it shouldn't be doing that. Okay, so we'll add that under number 4, RCL contract award. Okay, and then Mr. Westerbarth had emailed about sometime about 20 after 6, I believe, and had 2 items. One of which,
I
go ahead.
have 2 items. One is it's for Rockfest. It's a road closure request. I can explain when we get to that on the agenda. The second item is, I understand we've received an application for the Planning Commission on Wednesday prior to the board packet. I'd like to add that so the board can have the opportunity to know that we have an applicant applied, and I'm trying to understand why it wasn't included in the board packet.
Well, it wasn't included in the board packet because we tabled 4 people back in May until we adopted the application process. And I felt it only fair to get all 4 people's responses before forwarding those all on to everybody. So that's why it wasn't in
Well,
the
then
board
let's
packet.
put it in informational then, and just so the board has it.
Okay, but you're not looking to, I mean, I wasn't trying to hold it from anybody. I was just waiting until everybody's came in. So
I'm
you're
just
just wanting-
looking for I just want the board to be able to review all the applicants. So the process was followed, and typically in the past, when I was on the board and we had an opening in the next possible board meeting, if the applicant was there, I understand we have a process and the process was followed. So I just would like it included in the board packet so the board can have it to review. And we can deliberate as necessary.
okay, so you want it placed under informational then, number 4.
We'll put it under informational if you need some more time.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we have number 3, chamber request under other, number 4, RCL contract award, number 5, Rockfest road closure,
Yes.
and under informational, number 4, application for planning commission. Okay, with that, is there a motion to accept the agenda with changes?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Mr. Spencer to adopt the agenda with those changes. Sorry, I just have to, somebody's background. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Westerbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the presentation, the invoice cloud presentation. With that, I am going to find, I believe his name is Vince. Vince, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing well. And thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you and the board and anybody invited has to, let me know what the question is. I'll answer it, and feel free to interrupt me at any time. I promise to be brief.
Okay,
So am I going to have the ability to show a screen?
that's what I was just gonna ask. Do you want me to, I'm gonna make you the host.
Okay.
The only problem with that is, if anybody comes into the waiting room, you're gonna have to allow them in.
Okay, I can have that screen up. I have 3
Okay.
monitors, so I just have one open.
Okay, all right. So you should be the host now.
Excellent. Let me share. This will stop the other screen share. Do you want to continue? Yes. So can you see this gentleman with the blue background?
Yes.
Alrighty. Let me get that participant screen up here so I can monitor that. Cool.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I do it all day. It's totally fine.
Okay, all right.
So it's been a pleasure working with Jamie and the team. And let me begin with a a brief overview. Kelly Brown, admitted. A brief overview of, who we are, where we came from, and why we stand out in the marketplace. And then we'll talk about the specific problems facing Oscoda and how we can solve them. And then we'll take a look at the technology. Got some cool things for you. My CEO actually had the idea for the company back in 2009. He was paying his American Express bill online from home, and the experience was just so much better than when he tried to pay his water bill through the town website. So what he did was build something where he would be able to give your residents that Fortune 100 experience from Amex. And you really can have the same systems there that a lot of big cities like Boston and Atlanta and Indianapolis and Las Vegas are using. So we went live with 20 customers in 2009. And over the next 12 years, we grew to support more than 2,000 cities and towns in all 50 states. And last year, we handled $17 billion for those municipalities across 84 million little resident payment transactions. And these are our 4 C's. It's our clever little marketing alliteration. And cloud is in our name, Invoice Cloud, because we're the only cloud infrastructure. So we're kind of set up like Netflix in the sense that you never have to download anything or upgrade anything, or there's no downtime, there's no various versions. It just always works. It's always up to date, latest and greatest software and security. And Connect describes our direct real-time integration with BSNA, which is your core billing system that the town uses. And so this eliminates a lot of manual processes for staff. Communicate describes, we have automated payment reminders that go out with built-in links to make payments, which I'll show you, and notifications that go out, like if somebody has a credit card on file and it's going to expire, we'll update everybody automatically. And Convert describes how, letting Mary Ed in. Convert describes how we're laser focused on changing the residents' behavior from paying with cash and checks to doing it online, because we make it literally like as easy and fast as possible for residents to pay you digitally, like however, wherever they want. Letting Jessica in. And we'll also let them sign up for auto pay and paperless and reminders just by like checking off a box, and they can even pay you via text. It's really fancy. I'll show you. So this is all the stuff we can do. We're the only omni-channel solution that's out there because we offer like every possible payment method you could want. And all of these channels, we call them, are directly integrated. So what does that mean? So if you are at home and you remember the bill is due, but your husband's out running an errand and he remembers at the same time, and he calls in the IVR, and IVR is an automated phone system, and makes a payment from his car. And then you log on your laptop at home because you forgot the bill is due. Like a second later, you're going to see a zero balance, even though you paid 2 different ways that they are integrated. Let someone else in. And so everybody's going to be reminded that they have a payment due via text at a date and time that they choose. We'll text them. They'll get 3 automated emails, and the emails will stop if they make a payment, or if they make a partial payment, the balance will be updated from like 100 to 50 or whatever. And we can also allow them to set calendar reminders on their phone and their computer. And again, all this stuff is totally automatic. You don't have to lift a finger. And they all feature built-in links to facilitate payment on any device like a phone or a computer without having to download any apps or remember any passwords or like your goldfish's nickname. It's just really fast and easy. And because of that, we're replacing like 30 legacy systems like Point and Pay each month. So like every day, another town is moving over to Invoice Cloud, which is one of the reasons we're on this thing called Listserv, and a lot of towns in Michigan are happy. And I mentioned how, we see 40% of residents in a town on average use the service. So that's like 4 in 10 people. And so after a year, towns usually see twice as many people, 119% increase, pay you digitally versus cash or check in person. And 3 times as many people ask for paperless, which is where they want to bill via email instead of a letter, which you have to pay for. Usually it's like 80 cents. I think you guys are paying 40 cents. You guys are doing really well, but you're still paying 40 cents every time you want to send a letter. So we can get rid of that cost for you. So let's take a look at how it works today, and then we'll take a look at the technology. So right now, because of COVID and everything else, you're not really fully staffed. At the same time, you're fielding a ton of phone calls. You're doing a lot of stuff by hand manually. And there are some residents complaining that the system isn't user-friendly, especially the IVR or the phone system that you have in place today. And so you're not offering paperless today, but we could save you, letting this person in the room, we could save you $2,600 a year in paper and printing and postage if, based on the data that you shared with us. So that's $2,600 a year right there. And then auto pay, where it's like scheduled. Right now you have it available via bank and with like a paper form, an avoided check. So we can do it digitally from somebody's house, and they can also pay with credit cards too if they want. And we process it automatically instead of you doing it manually. And before an auto pay runs, we'll remind people a couple of days before, again, automatically instead of you emailing them manually. And residents can update their own information instead of you having to do it yourself. Because that's just, imagine like all of these people, you have to manage their information. And what if they move and they keep paying, or like they change their bank account? Like, not your problem. We'll take care of it for you. There's also like 150 paper bank checks a month. They take 4 minutes each to process. That's 10 hours of time you could have back to do other stuff. A lot of phone calls. We save towns usually 70% of phone calls, like 2/3, because the system's easy and people don't need to call you. Our IVR system, here's how it works. It's really great. If you call, the system is going to know who you are based on the cell phone number you're calling in from. So it authenticates based on the information already in BSNA. And then if there's a credit card or a bank account stored in BSNA, you can pay with that stored payment method. So it already knows who you are. Your payment method's already stored. You can like click a couple buttons and be gone in like 30 seconds and about your day, instead of typing in numbers and it's not recognizing you and it's like a real pain. And for property owners, we can set it up so that they can pay for multiple invoices at once, be in and out and done. And then tenants can pay their own bills without seeing like their neighbors' bills. It's called multi-customer login. So that's kind of just the unique benefits that would really benefit you guys. And you use BSNA. We partnered with them 2 years ago. We have 100 customers with them. And these are some of them. You might recognize some of these logos. And we work hard to, I mentioned, we're bringing on like a town a day. So we really have it down to a science. We give you this whole dashboard. It shows you step by step exactly what's going on. It takes 6 to 8 weeks. And we write out literally every step. And we do 3 out of 4 of these. So we do 75% of the heavy lifting. And let me show you what the website will actually look like. So you click pay a bill on the website, boom, you're taken to Oscoda's payment website. It's eco-friendly. We're nudging them to make a paperless option. You have all these options available to you. You can pay anything you want. Water bill, tax bill, you know, the kids' baseball team, dog license, whatever. So I'm going to click on utility bill. You can write whatever text you want here, whatever these fields are. And you can do a partial. So I'm going to pull up a guy named Glenn Hillary. I'm just going to type HIL, it pulls them up. I can view the invoice on every screen, the actual invoice, like the way it looks when you mail it. I can see my last 24 months of bill. So I get not only this invoice, but like all of them for the last 2 years. And if I want to set a reminder, what I do when this loads is click remind me. And what remind me is going to do is say, how do you want the reminder? So if I'm on my phone, I can do my phone. I'm on my computer, I can do my computer. Let me do the computer one real quick because I'm on a computer. So if I open it, what's it going to show me? The invoice number, the account number, a link to pay, the date it's due. I want to change when it's due. I just like click change and it'll be done. So I can, within 2 clicks, I'm already reminding myself. Same thing with a text, right? Text me like at night at this number on this date. Done. I mean, the number one reason people don't pay you is because they forget. Like that's by far and away the biggest reason. So we make it really easy. Let me get a reminder. And this is just like Amazon, right? So I can add this to my cart. This is again without a password. No issues. I can just go and do it really fast. I can view the invoice on every screen. I can even go add other invoices too, which is something that we built that nobody else has, which would be really great for you. And I can register this if I want, but I don't have to. All right, so I've added it to my cart. Now we're going to decide how to pay for it. I can pay with Venmo and like Apple Pay and all the mobile ones. They'll only show up if you're on a phone. I'm not on a phone, so they're not here. But like with a bank or a credit card, you can have a partial payment, you can have a minimum payment, you can get rid of these and just have the full. Let's just do $1 just for the heck of it. It automatically pulls in your information because it's tied into your billing system. And with a bank account number, we partnered with a third-party company called Certegy, C-E-R-T-E-G-Y, and it makes sure that the account and routing number you type in is ACH-able. So they can't type in something wrong by accident. And you see how if I type 4, it turns green, or 3, American Express lights up, or 2, MasterCard? It knows what I'm trying to type in. So if I hit 4, I can't type in an extra digit. And if I leave one off, it's like, hey, buddy, you didn't finish typing it in. So it's mistake proof is essentially what I'm saying. It knows the card, the number of digits, and it's going to ask for the email address because once you sign up, once you go through this process, you're going to get an email receipt. It's going to look like it's going to come from you. It's nice. But then you're automatically enrolled for the email reminders for the next month, for the next billing cycle, if it's quarterly or semi-annual. So you get 3 emails automatically, not one that'll get buried in spam. So if I go to the next page and I forget something, it doesn't like delete all of this stuff, which is super annoying. I hate when that happens. So then I'm like, okay, here's the rest of the information. I can go to the next screen. Great. Okay. So if I want to get like a text, pay by text, which is really cool, I'll show you, or auto pay, there's no more form. I don't have to give you a voided check. Like this is what it takes for me to enroll in auto pay. Like one click. It's amazing. I'm already clicking off the terms and conditions, which is going to sign me up for the email reminders. So this kind of feels like I should do it if like I'm a perfectionist. I look for everything to be checked. But also it's like doing me a favor. Like, wow, I don't have to do this again next month. Sure, I'll do it. And paperless is already checked off. Every time this is checked, you save like 40, 50 cents. So this is the whole thing. Like, it's really, really easy. And what's great is sometimes like Eversource will send out email reminders, but if you click pay the bill, there's a login wall. So what we do is we'll send a bill and it looks like it's coming from you. And if I pay it, it takes me right to the payment screen. So I get the email from you, I click pay, I see the screen, I go about my business. So like in 2 seconds, your bill's paid. I can even sign up for auto pay or paperless, which means what? I'm never late. You get a predictable revenue stream. You're saving money on postage and I'm happy because it's fast and easy. So it's like a win, 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 win. And that's that. Text to pay. This is really, really cool. So anybody who wants to do this with me, we can do it together. Let me pull this up. So this is the biller side. That's what the residents see. This is what you see. You can customize this however you want. That's not the important stuff. There's reconciliation tools and reports and blah, blah, blah. But I want to see a customer. I want to find a girl named Deanna Ada. Okay, there she is. I'm moving fast just because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I'll slow down if you want, but we're almost done. So there's a person, took 2 seconds to find, got all the stuff. If she wants her husband to get an email too, I just type it in here under courtesy email. Now everybody's on the same page. If someone's like, hey, I never got a bill, you can be like, that's not true. Ma'am, I saw you get the bill. You clicked on it on July 12th. I cannot waive that fee for you. I'm sorry. You can play Big Brother. And here's something cool. If somebody calls in, they're like, hey, I want to make a payment. You're like, all right, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, like I can email you a bill right now and they'll get this. Or I can text you a bill, or you can call the IVR, which takes 2 seconds. But I want to text everyone a bill. Does anybody want to get a bill via text on their phone right now? You can just tell me your cell phone number. I'll send it to you and we'll do it together. It's a really fun exercise.
I prefer no bills, thank you.
Jamie, do you want one?
Sure, send it to me.
What is your number?
989
Yep.
305
305?
Yep.
Okay.
1519.
All right. You get a bill. Does anybody else want a bill?
There, I got it.
Any of the board members, just so that they know what the technology is?
Just send one to me if you want. And
All right, Ann, what's your number?
989
Yep.
254 2159.
All right. Let me know if you get that.
Got it. Nice.
Anybody else while we're on this? We're gonna wrap up probably in 3-4 minutes.
Not paying it. 142.45. Not gonna
Holy
happen.
mackerel, Andy.
I know.
So
That must be an Oscoda water bill.
It is. No, it's a
if
Sabo.
you, so what you get is, let me stop sharing my screen for a second. So everybody could just see me. Where is the button for this? It's right here. Can everybody see me on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I got a text that says, here's a bill. And I'll actually show you on the PowerPoint after. But if I hit the button, it's bright. Let me turn the brightness down. It shows you that same website on your phone. And if I hit the blue button, I've never done this before, so forgive me if it looks awkward. If I hit the button, what it'll do is take me to the page. You guys can do this too. And it'll be like just the way it was on the computer.
Mhm.
So try paying $1, right? Hit pay minimum. And then you can go about it. So the whole thing works exactly the same, just on your phone. It's really fast. It's really easy. And there's actually a cool thing. If you click on card number, you see that field. And right there, it says scan card above the ERT on your keyboard.
Nice.
If you click scan card, you can actually scan the card and it'll read everything. This is really fancy, right? So now you guys have this. You can show anybody what invoice stub looks like if you want.
Oh.
And that's the nuts and bolts. Can you see the phone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is what we got. We got a link. It takes you to a mobile optimized website. You don't have to log in. There's no app. You can see your actual invoice via text. And if you have a stored payment balance, a stored payment method, you can pay your balance by typing PAY. I mean, you could type pay to pay your bill. Really cool. So you get 3 emails. They go away if you pay. They update the balance if you make a partial payment. You can set reminders for yourself. It's really easy. Here's one other thing too, like grocery stores will like say, like, do you want to donate 50 cents to breast cancer or whatever? Some towns like want to stay as far away from picking a charity because it makes it look like they don't care about the other charities. Or sometimes they're like, hey, I want to build a library and donate for free books. Whatever you want. If you want this, it's there. But you can turn donations on. You can donate $1 or round up your bill to the nearest dollar. We'll build it in for you. And let's let Rich in. And that's it. That's the whole presentation. I wanted to try and keep it under 30 minutes. So I'm glad I was able to do that. I went really, really fast. So I'm sure I'm skipped some stuff, but I wanted to get you the most important pieces. Are there any questions while we're together that I can answer for you?
You mentioned that the system is going to save the payment information for a specific property. How do you save that information when a login is not required?
So if you want to save it without logging in, it's attached to, so the portal is a front end to the system, which is in the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And your information's in the system. So when you go to access your information, you can update the system through the portal.
Right. So if I can
adding-
update information, so I could feasibly go in there and screw with my neighbor's address.
But you'd be
with-
paying his bills. But you
If
couldn't
I
change his
pay the
address.
bills, but it says you could update information about the account, if I remember correctly. So you cannot update the information about the account, only the payment methods.
I believe so. No one's asked me that before. I can look into it for you. But
And
I
those
mean,
payment
like,
right. And those payment methods are stored. So if I store a payment method on there and my neighbor goes in and screws up and gets into my address, they could feasibly pay my bill with my payment method, even though I'm not ready or the money's not in there because there's no login tied to it. It's just an open system.
yes and no. You can't take your payment method and pay. I can take your card and pay something else with it.
I
But I
understand,
can take my card and pay everybody's bill if you
Right.
want to.
but if you save your card on your account and I
Yeah.
log and I go poking around and your address is 408 whatever street and mine is 407 whatever street, and I fat finger it and hit 408 and I click and pay, then it's going to use your payment method to pay your account, even though the bill may or may not have been due, and you may not have the money in that account ready to pay it. So I could feasibly incur a bounce fee on your account if that payment method's stored there and I fat finger it on my end. Is that correct?
No, because it's only saved if you if you click set up auto pay.
Okay.
So then it's saved in the system. But if I pull up the screen, I can share it again if you want. Can I grab the screen back real quick?
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Oh, no worries. It's totally cool.
I was just
I
trying
want to show
to,
how we avoid that problem because that's important.
yeah, I was just trying to be able to let people in if they were there. Okay, it's back to you.
We're trying to avoid that getting screwed up because obviously it's sensitive. So if I add this to my checkout cart, it's just like Amazon, right? Proceed to payment, credit card. Now, even though, see, this doesn't get pulled in. And let's say I type it in, right? I know it's sketchy to go into a digital system and being worried about security. We give you all the PCI compliance and we actually take on that burden from you so you don't have to worry about it. Now it's X'd out here. If I go back to the previous screen, it's X'd out. So like if I'm at Starbucks, nobody can like run up to my computer and get my card number. But like even if you have it stored, you have to type it in when you go to make a payment. The only time you
Oh,
wouldn't
wow.
have to is if you call into
That
the
defeats the
IVR.
purpose, doesn't it? If you have to type it in again.
Well, it pulls in. Well, if it's typed in, you should be signed up for auto pay. So you wouldn't even have to log into the system again.
Fair enough. But yeah, okay,
that's-
so
it pulls in all
let's say
all this
let's
stuff.
say that's absolutely the case. So the bill comes out on the 15th. My due date is the 20th. I
Mhm.
put my money into that account to make sure that bill, because I've got it set for auto pay on the 19th, but you
Mhm.
fat finger it on the 17th, and the money's not in there yet. Even though I'm signed up for auto pay and the account has stored my credit card information, if I click pay now, is it going to try to pay now, or is it going to say, you're signed up for auto pay, wait till your auto pay day?
No, it would pay now, and then the auto pay would not run. But the auto pay would send out a reminder email in advance saying, "Hey, you have a bill due."
Right. So, and
$100 is going to come out on Thursday.
so if that did happen, and so the system has saved your card information, and you've got it
Mhm.
signed up for auto pay, the bill comes out on the 15th, it's due on the 20th. You're ready to
Mhm.
put your money in there. You get paid on the 19th, and you're going to go put money in that account. And I
Mhm.
fat finger it, and I click auto, and I click pay now on your address with your prepaid method. It's gonna ding your card, and that money's not in there yet, and it's going to.
You're talking about your own account, not your neighbor's.
No, I'm
right?
talking about the two different accounts. So I fat finger it, I log into your account accidentally, or I access your account for payment accidentally, and I click the button. Now your payment information is stored in there, and you've got it set for auto pay 3 days from now, and you're going to put the money in 2 days from now, and I'm making it pay it right now. Would the
Mhm.
system process that payment even though I didn't log in as you, and I made a mistake on who I was typing in there? Would it process the payment and ding your card?
No, because if you go onto any account, you can't add. It won't pull the card number, so you can add your own card to pay your neighbor's bill. That could get you into trouble.
Okay,
But
so
there's
if
like 10
I-
opportunities to see that it's somebody else's account.
So the only time the card is ever used in an auto save method is if the customer types it in there and sets it for auto pay only. And then in which case, if you want to go in and pay it early and just and do it before the auto pay, you have to type the
Mhm.
card number in there again.
Right.
Okay.
Because otherwise, anybody would be able to get your card number.
Well, I'm not
To your
worried
point.
about seeing it. I'm not worried about them seeing it. I'm worried about them authorizing a payment on that card before the money's in the account.
Mhm.
So,
So the only other way you could make someone spend money on their account if you call into the automated phone system with their phone. So if you stole their cell phone, then you could text pay and pay the bill, or you could be authenticated in a BSNA and paid with their stored information. But someone has to steal your cell phone in order to pay your bills with your money.
or
so
you
it's kind
or spoof caller ID.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
I
What
do.
we did was we
Yes.
went out and
I mean,
we actually
you've
went out
gotten a spam call, haven't you, from a phone number in Texas? You don't know anybody
Yeah,
in
it's really
Texas.
annoying.
You ever tried calling one of those numbers back and it just goes
Nope.
to disconnected? Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So you talked quickly and I got what you said, but I want to make sure everyone else on the call.
We
is
never get
with
what
us.
Jeremy says. It's okay.
Well, I just want to make sure
Okay.
when you go in, you have to type in your card number. So the only way you
Right.
could make a mistake is if you pay somebody else's bill, but it says 10 times, this is Greg's bill, this is Greg's bill. So if you're
Right.
married and you go to pay Greg's bill, it's like, shame on you. You saw 10 times who it was. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, I understand. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some kind of little, since there's no login, since I'm not required to create an account with this iCloud payment method, and so that I can store my payment methods in my account and authenticate with it, with credentials, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be an instance where somebody gets dinged because they had the water bill was $100. They had $50 in their account. They were planning on putting the rest of the money in a couple of days later, and somebody figured out that they could make the payment early. They don't care about what credit card number's on there. It's saved on the account. They just want to make that payment. They just make the payment early and the money's not in there yet. And then of course we all know how wonderful the banks are with late fees and whatnot and bounce fees. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be a possibility. I'm sure that it would be, albeit a small possibility. If it is a possibility, it'll obviously come back to bite us. And I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to happen.
Now, in the event that somebody does try to pay a bill with $50 and the bill is $100, you're going to get what's called an ACH reject. And so when that happens, both the payer and the biller, you and he or she are going to get an email immediately saying, she's going to get an email with a link saying, hey, you tried to pay, it didn't work. Here's a new link. Try to pay again, please. You're going to get, Jamie's going to get an email that says, here's what didn't get paid, who didn't pay, what the error code is. So she doesn't have to, she just knows immediately what the issue was. She doesn't have to go hunting. So everybody gets alerted immediately.
Is there a bounce fee for bounce dates?
So
they're going to get the email that, oh, we bounced your payment that you didn't make, and there's going to be an additional fee now, plus what the bank nails you for overdraft fees.
That's $10 that we charge you. And if what a lot of towns and cities do is they'll bill $35 and just make the pocket $25. So I don't know what you want to do. I would recommend that, but it's totally up to you. But yeah, we'll ask you for $10 if a resident makes a mistake.
Right on. And this platform can be utilized to pay anything that any citizen owes the township, period. Water bill, tax bill, whatever bill. I forgot to mow the lawn bill, my fines, whatever.
Yeah, there's different ways to set it up. We'd ask you if we could do it all up front just because it's easier while we're already in there doing it. Just do it once. But yeah.
All right. What other customization options do we have? I was just having a discussion with some folks in the water department.
Yeah, there's literally like a page I can show you. It has like hundreds of different buttons and switches. You can change the color, what the text is, what the fields do, what the fields say, if they're mandatory, how many of them there are.
That's almost that's aesthetic customization. I was looking more for back end things where with more notifiers, things that the administrative staff can utilize to kind of cut down on paperwork and time involved in following up on late water bills, etc.
We give you 29 event-driven templated emails that go out for various reasons without you even having to lift a finger. Like if somebody has a stored credit card and it's going to expire, we'll let them know ahead of time. Hey, your card's going to expire. Trying to avoid friction points, just make it easy and fun for everybody.
For sure.
But we can create new emails and you can edit the templates that are existing and have them go out for different reasons. And we have an integration team that works with every municipality and tax authority and utility provider to do, like they all have weird idiosyncrasies that we will rise to the occasion for if we can. So, and you can also take the system and point it outwards. It's called outbound campaigns. So if you update your COVID hours, if there's a boil water notice or if there's evacuation, tornado, I'm making stuff up, you can send out, this is a separate paid service, but outbound campaigns, you can text people or you can email people, or you can use you can record a message and use the automated phone system to call out. So what's nice is you can just take a bunch of street addresses and put them in Excel and upload them as a list and save that list as bottom left quadrant of town. And if that's the way the pipes are set up, and then just hit those people with a message ad hoc. Or if there's a school closed because of snow, if it's open with COVID, right? But you can use the system outwardly too, which is unique.
Right. And to that end, we could probably also have it send emails to be read by an API for late bills and shut off ticket notices and stuff like that. Have you guys had anyone integrate anything like that before?
So you have BSNA, and BSNA has these things called modules, and they have modules for water and tax and permits. And the other stuff that they don't have a module for, instead of it being a real-time integration, we'll do a batch integration. So once a day, we'll send the information back and forth. And through the batch way, we can do all the different stuff you want. If there's no module in BSNA, we can't integrate. Now there is, like for parking tickets, sometimes there are systems like OmniPark or whatever the system. We have 130 integrations that we have, but we're not integrated with every other system on planet Earth. So there's a lot that we But ancillary services like airport fees and, there's a million little systems that we could integrate with that we don't. We do the big ones because that's most of the volume.
When you say you don't, do you mean you won't or that you will, but you just don't on a regular basis?
Both. Sometimes they're just so small, so few people use them that where it's so rare that we would do an airport fee that we're not going to hire people and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this thing that's going to be used by one town sometimes. Or the system might not want to work with us, which is rare, but happens. But and a lot of the times we're in the process of building it. We build 25 APIs a year. So,
Okay.
well, not APIs, integrations, but these are big head. Like we have 650 employees, and a lot of them are software engineers that make like a lot more than me. They're very smart people with a lot of talented skill sets. I mean, to make a system like this, like we went out and bought an automated phone system company. We found the best one, we bought it, and then we integrated it with us and then integrated it with 130 systems. So these people are really smart and work really hard, and we only give them high priority items.
Right on.
That's not to mention that if you have feedback for us, we won't do it, but it's going to be something of a lot of value to the company selfishly.
Right on. Last question for me. I noticed the customization with the branded interface. I like that. You mentioned that there are reports available for
Mhm.
individual addresses. So let's say I want to go in and you're going to hold that information for 24 months, I believe you said.
You can see 24 months of bills from the town to the resident as a resident.
Yes. So is that only the ability to see the bill, or do we get to generate reports based on or to see yearly water usage as a resident? Because I think that would be beneficial to residents.
That would be cool. I don't think we can do it today.
Not
because of
today.
the time. No, I don't think we can do that. That would be cool. Somebody else asked me that in New York, and they wanted us to integrate with a certain thing. It's a New York version of that, but we haven't done it yet.
Well, if you're integrating with BSNA, it shouldn't be too bad. I mean, you're pulling the bill. You can see what the bill is. There should be a field that says what the gallon usage is. I would think that it'd be pretty easy to toss out a report based on those numbers. But maybe that's something you guys will work in the future and let us know when it's available, because I'd like to see it for my house so I can come after my kids when the water usage goes through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, what the thing is, like we, I mentioned Venmo and Apple Pay and Google and Apple and PayPal, like all these like mobile things. There's money you can only spend that's on your phone on an app. So if you're on a computer, you can't pay with it. Meanwhile, 48% of people are paying from their phone. And we asked them a survey in February last year, what's the number one thing you would want to see from us, right? We just asked the billers, you guys, and the residents, the payers, tell us what feedback you want. And we do it all the time. It's how we understand holistically what all of our stakeholders, everybody who uses the system, wants. And resoundingly, everybody said we want to use like Venmo, PayPal, Google, Apple money on our phones. And we were like, well, that's cool. So we did a press release in May, and in June we launched Digital Wallet, which was like half the logos I just showed you on the website. So it went from idea to released product in the wild in like 4 or 5 months. We got so many responses. We were like, this is a good idea. So we built it. So that's an example of taking feedback and doing something with it. And that donations thing I showed you, New Orleans asked for that. We built it for them. They have 10 times as much money flowing to their charitable cause, because it's just in the checkout route, just like the auto pay and the paperless. So we'll build things from time to time. And we actually release one update every second Tuesday of every month. And I can show you a screenshot of what the system looked like in 2013. It looked like Windows 95 compared to what it looks like now, because we're always releasing new stuff. So there's actually in the biller portal a little yellow gift box icon you can click on that will show you what's coming up. So we're always releasing updates. And I mentioned Netflix before. Like, you've used it before, right?
Indeed.
So when you want a new season of a show, you don't go out and download it. It's just there and you click on it. Like, you didn't have to download it. So we're the same way. Overnight, we roll out a new thing. You don't have to take your system down and upgrade it locally. It's coming at you from the internet. So it's just given to you. It's great. It's really cool.
So this is a SaaS model, basically.
It is a SaaS model, and everybody else is hosted. So from a technical standpoint, we're like light years ahead of everybody because of those problems I mentioned.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's also very PCI compliant and everything. So it's just.
I do have one more question. I lied. Have you looked at what we're paying now and what you're going to charge us? And can you tell us the difference?
I don't know what you're paying now. There was a previous rep who now works somewhere else in the company. He was promoted and does customer service now. So I can tell you what the proposal says.
Oh, I
that,
saw that. Yeah, I'm sure that the board read through that and we saw the percentages and all that fun
Mhm.
stuff based on the different transaction types.
Yeah.
I
What
was
are your,
just
what are your
wondering if,
thoughts on that, Jamie? On what it looks like before and after? What's the money look like?
I think it's pretty comparable to what we were paying with Point and Pay. Some of the features, obviously the board's going to have to make a decision on whether we want to pass those fees on to the customers, the residents, or if there's some of them that we want to absorb based on the savings that Vince was outlining in some of the different. But otherwise,
Yeah,
it's
so
comparable.
we charge $15 a month for a card reader, so we're giving you one for free. You have 150 bank checks. So if I'm sitting on my couch from home and I open my bank app and I hit Pay Oscoda the day before my bill is due, it's the 19th, it's due on the 20th. You know, little do I know, the bank is mailing you a paper check and you're not going to get it for 10 business days. So now it's late. I might have typed in the wrong account information. Now Jamie's going to figure out who the hell this check belongs to. She's tearing her hair out. She has to add a bill to the customer. He's pissed. She has to call him to let him. It's like so much work with just a paper check that should be digital. So what Online Bank Direct does, which will charge 25 cents a check, is we'll intercept the check before it's made physical and give you a digital payment file that says who paid what and when. We'll give you the money in 2 days and we'll update BSNA automatically. So that's 25 cents a check. It's a tremendous service. So at 150 checks a month, that's like $30. Or I'm making whatever 25 cents times 150 is. So that's one cost. If there's a reject, that's $10. We ask, the only recurring dollar amount we ask for is $100 a month to use the service. Any integration, deployment, and training is free. We waived all the fees for like help desk support, and there's marketing we'll do for you. 80% of what our marketing team does is special projects for towns. Like there's flyers we'll help you with that will let people know it exists. So paperless billing, we'll ask for 20 cents every time per billing cycle per resident that signs up for paperless, because we did the math. It costs 35 cents to take a postcard, print it, put a postage stamp on it and send it to the resident per month at 3,500 people per month. So instead of 35 cents to do it physically, we'll ask for 20 cents and we'll do it digitally. And so you're saving 15 cents, and it's not a new line item because we already approved a budget. So we're actually reducing that budget and reallocating some of it to us instead of the post office. So it is a 20 cent cost, but it's actually a 15 cent savings. The credit cards, the $1.95 minimum at 3.5%. An e-check or ACH is $2.95. And if someone calls the IVR to make a payment, it's a 95-cent service. It's 95 cents if they make a payment and it's charged to the resident. And that's it. There's also this thing, auto pay, instead of $2.95, it's just 95 cents. So we reduced the price there. And that's it. It's pretty easy. Does that all make sense? I mean, it's in the packet for you.
yeah, it looks good to me. The only other side question that's not to do with the service is, has the attorney reviewed the contract to ensure that it applies or that it doesn't violate any of our ordinances, statutes, policies, etc. And as soon as
Yep.
the attorney signs off on it, I'd be happy to move forward as long as Ms. McGuire is ready and wants it.
We sent it over ahead of time. It's 4 pages, like 95% of the 2,000 plus clients that we have executed as is. I want to make sure you do your due diligence though. Did your attorney have a chance to take a peek at that?
I don't know. That would be a question for Tammy if it got passed on to him, but if not, we can address that later on the agenda when we talk about the topic.
Okay, well, as a point of order, I would like to suggest to the board that if, pending your approval, that you do have a vote for this tonight, pending the, 0 red lines from your attorney. So that way, if we get that back, then we can create the paperwork for you and submit it for signature rather than wait a whole month. Just because Jamie wants to be up and running by September, October, prior to the next, the winter tax. So we give ourselves like 90 days worst case scenario to implement. So we want to kind of start sooner than later. So if we could do it this month, it'd be cool. But can you guys do that? Vote without the approval of the vote pending the approval from the attorney?
Yeah, we can
whatever.
put a contingency on it.
But we do actually meet twice a month as well, Vince, not once a
Okay.
month. So.
Because
we
I
do
just
meet-
did this with the town of Monitor. I mean, this yeah. So they did that. They did an approval with a contingency, and then we followed up with the lawyer.
But we do meet again July 26th. So,
Okay.
okay, any more questions, I guess, for Vince before we move on? Because we're close to
Sorry,
8
I had
o'clock.
lots of questions there. I think it's
I
an
know,
awesome service,
Jeremy.
and I wanted
We
to get all
appreciate
the,
it.
I wanted to get all the coolness out there. So excellent
Yeah.
presentation.
Yep. Did
Thank you,
any other
Jeremy. You have
board
my cell
members?
phone number in the signature of my email if you are on the front of that proposal, first page, so you can text me if you have any more questions, okay?
Fantastic.
Did any other board
Thank you,
members
Vince.
have any questions before we move on to the agenda and close the presentation? No? Okay.
None for me.
No
All
more
right.
questions, just appreciation. Thank you very much, Vince.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Vince.
Have a great night. Bye.
Okay, all right. Great. Okay, did the share screen, is it now the agenda?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So moving on to, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong piece of paper. We are into the public comment section of the agenda. We have 2 public comments. This is the first this is the first public comment. If you are wanting to speak on something that is on the agenda this evening, now is the time to speak again for an agenda item. You would have 4 minutes to speak. Is there anybody that would like to speak in regard to a agenda item that's on? If not, we do have a second public comment later in the meeting, and that is for any topic. Doesn't have to be on the agenda.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hi. My name is Kelly Erickson. I'd like to comment on the agenda item regarding permit for the marijuana industry in Oscoda.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, Kelly, can you state your address as well?
my address is 5756 Van Etten Creek Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And so I'm not sure if the best time to do this would be now or at the end of the meeting, but I did read the, what do you call this? The proposal for their submission for the permits. And I had, Jeremy, did you get the notes that I had emailed to you or that Darren had emailed you today?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring your attention to those things. And then I have some experience with the marijuana industry in Colorado, which their market is about 10 years more mature than your market here. So I wanted to make those comments as well. You can maybe tell me if now is a good time or at the end is a better time when you would like to discuss this.
Well, we are going to be acting on the resolution in the middle of the meeting. So if you have something that you want us to consider for action, now would be the time.
Okay, so 1.1-A, there is a $5,000 non-refundable permit fee. And I feel like this is cost prohibitive to small growers, and I'd like to submit maybe an idea to tier those fees. Class A is relatively small. It's up to 100 plants, and that I think 1,000 would be a little bit more reasonable. Class B, less. Class C, those are big growers. I think 5,000 would be good for those. There's so many fees and so many items that come up. And this is what we did see in Colorado as well, is that once you start tacking on the fees and then and going through inspection, we want to make sure that it's not cost prohibitive to small growers. Because what happened is in Colorado now, 10 years out, you have to have $1 million in the bank just to step into the market. And that makes it very cost prohibitive for small growers or people who are on the smaller end or boutique. We're focusing on cultivation. So I'm not even addressing processing. I'm not addressing provisioning centers or anything like that. If we make it very expensive, we're going to get rid of small farmers. And I want to just call your attention to that before you voted.
Okay.
And then also there's another section, a permit holder may not engage in any other marijuana facility on the permitted property or premises without first obtaining a separate local permit. Does that cost another $5,000? And what if this entity is not, 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 what if this entity is uh, handling THC products. So for instance, if I wanted to have a cultivation unit and then in that same building, but separate from the cultivation as required by law, an education center about when should you wait? It's not good for people under 25. Safety concerns about consuming the product, medical concerns about consuming the product, medical benefits about consuming this product. But I am not selling or handling or making available to the public anything that has THC in it. Would I then need to pay another $5,000 for a permit for that to be in the same building is my question. And I'm sorry if I'm not being very articulate. I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, that's okay. Do you have, you are limited to 4 minutes. I'm sorry, and you're getting down there. So did you have other comments?
I just wanted to make a plea to the board to say that we've seen this industry be barred in certain ways. Like we've seen people who one fire chief will sign off, another fire chief who doesn't agree with the marijuana industry will come in and require one pipe to be moved for $10,000. And we've seen those sink businesses in Colorado. So I would just say that the marijuana industry, it's a lot like the alcohol industry. Should everybody be drinking alcohol all day, every day? No. Should everybody be smoking weed every day, all day? No. But we need to be friendly to the business because it is a business.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The timer went off and it was really quiet. I'm sorry. But the
That's
timer
fine,
is up.
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you though.
Mhm.
Would anybody else like to have public comment for something that's on the agenda? You should be able to unmute yourself to speak.
Sure, I'll speak.
Okay, and you are?
Art Miller, 8034 First Street, Oscoda. And it's regarding the invoice cloud presentation. It was pretty slick, but that's what a salesperson's trained to do. Having looked at probably 24 accounting systems, I'm going to ask that the board wait till your next session, take a vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Anybody else have a public comment in regard to an agenda item? Again, keeping in mind that we have a second public comment at the end of the meeting. I hear something. Oh, okay, I'm going to do a last call for public comment. Okay, hearing none. We are going to move on to consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening, we have work session meeting minutes from June 25th, 2021. Is there any comments on those?
There was one of them that was approved that said the motion failed. Which one was that?
Did you review the updated one I sent to you, Jeremy?
No,
On the work session or the regular board meeting minutes?
it was the regular board meeting minutes of June 28th, 2021.
Okay, well, right now we are addressing the June 25th work session meeting minutes. Any comments on those? No? Okay, then with the regular meeting minutes on June 28th, there were a couple corrections or a couple changes, and Josh emailed those out this afternoon.
Was that one of them, Josh?
Yes.
And I have one, I guess, Josh, the Lake Street Development Property MOU, it should be listed as an LOI. We approved an LOI.
Correct. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, and I wanted to point out a couple of things. First is on page 10 of the packet. It's page 5 of the minutes, at the very top. Just wanted to point out that we have resolution number 2021-20. And so therefore, our resolutions on our agenda tonight will have to be amended from 20 to 21 and 21 to 22.
Okay, yeah, okay. I thought I signed something today that was a 20, so I wondered about that.
Yeah, and the other point I wanted to make was in the minutes under board comment. I had made a comment last week about informing people that they'll have to use the area codes in all 10 numbers and phone calls starting in October, and they're advising the people start doing that early. It's listed in the minutes that it's for long distance. We already have to do that for long distance. This is for local calls. So what I was trying to get across to the residents here is if you live in Oscoda and you want to call the township hall, you will have to put in the area code, the 989, to make that call starting in October. We're just trying to give everybody a heads up, and they're advising people to start doing that sooner rather than later so that everybody's used to doing it.
Okay, so that should really be, Bill, instead of for long distance, it should be for all calls. Is that what you're saying?
For all,
It should say-
yeah, for all calls. That's
Okay.
correct.
And you would be okay with that correction to switching for all calls instead of long distance?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on the meeting minutes?
One other thing I would like to see changed on the minutes going forward is where you have all yays and then nays and then motion carried. If it was all yays, we don't need to have the nays in there. The word nays. That seemed confusing, I think.
Okay,
See what I'm saying?
right. Yep, I think we can discuss that with Josh moving forward. See what his
Yeah.
thought is.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other comments then on the June 20, any other corrections, I should say, on the June 28th? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to the payment of bills. We have we have a prepaid run that should actually read July 6th. So it is in the, it's in the packet. It's just an error on the agenda itself, but it's July 6th and the amount is 33,597.38. Is there any questions on that run?
Excuse me.
Okay. None? Okay, and then we also have a check run and we just missed the date there. That should be July 13th, 2021. Are there any questions on that run?
I did have one question on the 13th. It's under unallocated. It has Oscoda Wrestling and it has fireworks labor for $500.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong, but it seems to me that I recall that the fireworks company, they were charging us a little extra because we weren't providing help at the
Right. There was,
Like-
they were actually they were charging us, we paid $500 to help them, to have them do the setup and not have to find anybody. But this year there was an issue with their crew. And they reached out to Tammy and I and indicated they were having a hard time finding somebody to do that setup and breakdown. So Tammy and I discussed reaching out to somebody else to fill that gap. And we solicited the help from the wrestling team. So the same amount is being spent, instead of it being given to the firework company, it was given to the wrestling team.
Okay, that's terrific. That's a great idea. Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we thank the wrestlers for doing that as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, it worked out. And they, the fireworks company provided the carts and everything, so we didn't have to scramble with that. It was a labor issue, so. And Tammy facilitated that with Mr. Lopez, so. Right, any other questions on that check run? Okay, with that, again, we did those 2 date corrections there, and there was a couple items in the regular meeting minutes of June 28th. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with those changes?
I'll move.
Or
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton to approve the consent agenda with those changes. Roll call, please.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, subcommittee reports. I just actually wanted, I'm sure everybody has read it in the paper, but I wanted to make the board aware that Gary Kellen, the airport manager, has announced his retirement. The airport authority is in the process, recruitment process to fill that position. He has indicated that he will stay through the end of the year if need be, to facilitate that change. So I just, again, wanted to make sure that the board is aware of that. So that is my update in regard to the airport authority. Moving on then to the superintendent report. The first on the list is the invoice cloud, which was a very nice presentation that we received. I don't know if you want to add more, Tammy or Jamie, on your.
Well, I will add that I just sent the contract to the attorney. And depending on what the board's opinion is of how things went, he will be reviewing it, I'm sure, sometime tomorrow.
Are you for it or against it, Jamie? What do you think?
I think it's a great tool for the residents to use themselves, to initiate and change things. And I think actually a lot more people will be more comfortable doing that and updating and they'll be able to use their credit card to do their payments that way, for auto pay and things like that, which I've had a ton of people ask me to do that. And we're not capable of doing that with Point and Pay at this time.
So not only is it going to make it pretty, it's going to add functionality that wasn't there before.
Several different tiers, difference from Point and Pay that Invoice Cloud will be able to help us do for the convenience for the residents, for sure.
Nice. I noticed that one of the citizens had taken issue with us thinking about voting on that tonight. Can you think of any reasons why we should hold that off for 2 weeks?
I don't really. I really don't. I guess if I have one concern, it's how we'll be getting the money distributed to us. Since we went with Bonfire with the reservation system for Old Orchard Park, the way their money comes in, it's kind of chunked differently together. So it took Jane some time to get that all figured out when it flows through into the checking account. So if I have one concern, that'll probably be it, but it's just like everything else that's new. You just have to get used to it.
Right. So you think there'd be a little bit of a learning curve there, but that's about the only issue you can see, huh?
Yeah, I do. And I think I think with Invoice Cloud being able to help us with the changeover to notify residents of the change, because we're going to be going right now, we don't charge a fee for our ACH that we have for utility billing and for taxes, but we have a lot of people on our ACH now, and we don't charge for that, but we are changing all the accounts for them, their personal information. Some people forget, sell their house, and they never let us know to stop taking the money out of their account, that type of thing. So that now moving forward with the Invoice Cloud, those things will all be initiated by them and not us.
Jamie, back to your point earlier about Bonfire for the Old Orchard. So the difference though is that Bonfire doesn't integrate with BSNA, whereas this pay service that we saw earlier does. So was there some discussion with you when they were meeting with you, talking about how some of that integration could be completed? I mean, did they, my concern, like you said, is I wouldn't want to see you get just one massive chunk of money and then have to sort it out. That's kind of a hard way to deal with that. Deal with the accounting. So
yeah, yes, for sure. It's actually a couple different things with Bonfire, honestly, but the biggest thing is that that we're having an issue with is when somebody batches out, it batches everybody out at the same time, which in all my years of retail, any type of retail in the food service or with the township, I've never worked anywhere where it batched every single terminal out at the same time. Even if somebody's in the middle of their shift, it batches everybody out. So that's where the confusion and some of the things happening. And we've been working really diligently with the staff from Old Orchard Park to get through that. And actually we've decided to get through this season and possibly move and use a different vendor. So, because they haven't been able to help us. And we've asked several times.
Do you think that Invoice Cloud might fill the gap there?
I don't know. They would have to be able to be integrated with Bonfire is the big deal. So I think Bonfire has a few other vendors that we can look at using. So
Right on.
I don't think that's a big problem. But I think just with any change, I think that it's just going to be a learning curve for everybody, the residents and the staff. But I think in the long run, it's going to be huge, a huge difference. So many people have asked for paperless, and we have the capability with BSNA, so we need to use it.
So what do you
Right.
think, what are the, should we start talking about what fees we're going to pass through since we're going to migrate to this platform, or we're talking about migrating to this platform? Is
Um,
there, I mean, is that something we need to talk about now, or is that something we can decide later? I don't know.
I think the only one that I right away that I would like to see is the bank check one, because that definitely is a cost savings and it's not huge. He actually, I think it was $50 a month is what I had, and then time that it takes for us to take care of the bank checks, because that's all they do is people think they're actually sending us their money ACH. They're not. It's a check that gets written by their bank. It takes 7 to 8 days to get to us. A lot of people are upset that it's late and they get a late fee or things like that, or they don't put their account number on it. And like Vince said, we have to track it down, and actually we make copies of all those checks because we've had so many people say, well, I didn't make a mistake, it was at your end, and we have copies of the check that shows that no, you put the wrong account number in there, so we posted it to that account number that was on there. So we've had to go back and reverse fees, and Melinda's had to take time to look at different things or help us track down going, all right, who's this person? Because we have so many people that they rent. So the name on the check isn't the owner. So you have to try to figure out where that money's got to go. So
Sounds like a joy.
it is.
Well, I'm glad to see you smiling about it. That's
It's
that
just
means
part
it's
of the thing, we do it.
yeah,
all
for
good.
sure.
Jamie, I just
Okay.
had one quick
Didn't laugh,
question about this.
She'd cry.
Oh,
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm looking at the fees, and so I'm not really clear on what they are, but I guess the point I was trying to make is the only way that a person, let's say, just an example, to pay their water bill, the only way they could pay that without incurring a fee is to write a check and mail it to the township or bring it into the township. Is that too simplistic, or is there some way using this system that they can pay their water bill without incurring any additional cost?
They would be able to, that's correct. First part of your statement is correct. Check, cash, obviously is free. You can mail it in, come in over the counter and do that. If we absorb the fees for the online bank direct portion, then if they initiate it from their bank account from home and send us that check, then that would be free service also. Otherwise, it would be just like it is now, that with Point and Pay, if you use the IVR system, there's a fee incurred. If you come in and use your credit card, there's a fee that's over the counter. There's a fee online if you use your credit or debit card. An electronic check, that type of thing. Also, there's a fee to use that right now also. So that would be the only difference.
Okay, and I think he was saying if you like set up auto pay on an account and you use a credit card, pay that every month, would they still incur that credit card fee?
Yes, they would. Yes, but I think it's a lower fee than what we are paying now with Point and Pay. And a lot of people have asked about being able to use a credit card to do that.
Yeah, I don't remember what our fee is now. It seems to me it was kind of I thought it was a little excessive to use a credit card, like to pay.
I want to say it's like $3.
if you're paying taxes with a credit card right now, it's 3%, so it can get be pricey.
Yeah.
So, but if you do an electronic check, it's a flat fee. And then with the water bill, it's tiered for like every $50, it's $1.50, and then and then up past that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm all for automating this, and I know this was the first presentation. Jamie, I know you sent it out earlier for us to look at, but I can't see where 2 weeks is going to make a difference in my mind, so we can answer the questions and how money come in, and then we all get a chance to really look at the fees, have a discussion. So I guess in my mind, I'd like to have the attorney look at it, and then let's bring it up at the next board meeting.
I think Tim Cummings tried to say something earlier too. Did you have anything to add, Tim? It's kind of muffled there.
You know, yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, it was, I was just commenting to make a kind of a joke that, you know, when we were saying that the issues that Jamie was going through, and I said, yeah, you were saying that she was laughing an awful lot, and I was like, yeah, she probably wouldn't, she'd laugh now, because if she didn't laugh, she'd cry at all the problems that all these checks and everything else are creating for her, which I can appreciate. It's like,
Right.
there's no magic. You can just, you know,
The township
magic
board
wand
meeting.
over it and make it all right. So what?
Someone named Catherine doesn't have their mic muted.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. I just let her in. If you come in, I missed her. Where'd she go?
But I do want to talk about this 2 weeks idea. So Steve, are you saying to postpone the decision tonight until the attorney has reviewed it, or?
Until the attorney reviews it, we can get a chance to, you know, Jamie can get a chance to discuss with them how the money comes in, how it's batched, how it has to be broken apart. And it gives us a little time to really understand the fees. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I do have to say this, Jamie, I really like the variety of options, and I think that's going to help a lot of people. I know the version or the service that we have today is not, it doesn't have all of those bells and whistles, but, you know, it had some, and I think it's been helpful for folks, you know,
Yes.
but I think it's, this is definitely a major step forward, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, Point and Pay was the first one that we went to when we initiated credit card payments. And so I think this is just a broader scope of all the things that are available. Probably one of the hugest things that I like about Invoice Cloud is that it's like Amazon. You can go there and you can put your water bill in there, you can put your taxes in there, and you can pay for everything all at the same time. And, you know, if you wanted to get a seasonal launch pass moving down the road, we can move those kind of things in there too. I don't want to do it all at the same time. I kind of would hope to be able to get taxes taken care of, make sure that's going smoothly, and then integrate utility billing and some other things in there and move along kind of like what we were doing. But I'm super excited for it.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm kind of with Steve on this one in regard to, I think we got a great presentation. Now having that presented, I can understand the process a little bit more, seeing it. I guess my thought would be the same thing. We give us a little bit of time to have the attorney review the contract, make sure there's no glaring issues there. Amy can dive in more to the things that we want to start out of the gate with, and know what we're, you know, what we would be then recommending to be passed on as either we're going to absorb or pass on to the end users, and then come back in 2 weeks with kind of a recommendation, I guess, of where we want to go. And again, Mr. Friel's review of the contract. So is everybody good with that?
And real quick, there are those details that I know you guys want to get into in terms of, yeah, it was a great presentation. That was his job to do that. But the main thing I look at right off the bat with a standard form, or what they could characterize as an adhesive contract like this, is termination. And so what the board should be paying attention to right off the bat is, and I have it pulled up right here, is item or section 6. And we have a 3-year term with auto renewals of successive 3-year terms. And then the ability to terminate by notifying in the event of a material breach, you know, with 30 days notice. So basically, so the board's thinking about this in the right pragmatic context. You'd be looking at a 3-year term out of the chute. and again, I'm looking at this as we're talking, trying to expedite the whole process.
Right, which I think we're pretty much not gonna act on it tonight, so you've got time to dive through it and come back to us with some
Yeah,
recommendations.
but think about that though. I mean, it's a
Okay.
3-year term and with potential successive 3-year terms, 90-day termination, you know, we have to think about it that way. Otherwise, you're right. It's all about, you know, what little, you know, ticks and tacks are built in that we'd have to look out for.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll be coming back to this then in 2 weeks at our
All right, well,
July
I think we need
26th meeting.
need a
Yeah.
motion to postpone. So I would make a motion, we postpone this for 2 weeks pending the contract review by the attorney with recommendations. And the opportunity for the treasurer to dive into how the financial aspect, how the money has been back to the township and what needs to be done on that end, and to give the board the opportunity to look at the fees.
I'll support that.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Okay, and I have one comment if I could before we vote.
Uh-huh.
Just if any board members have a strong feeling about the fees and passing them on or not passing them on, if you could reach out to me, that would be great. I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Then roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Westerbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the IT rate revised contract. Tammy?
Okay, your packet contains a revised version of the professional services contract created by IT Right. I'm hoping tonight that we can resolve this and that everyone has requested has been put into this contract. And after review, I would please consider approving the IT Right contract and authorize the supervisor and clerk to execute the document.
Okay, well, Jeremy and Tim, I believe you were the game
She's throwing the hot
masters
potato
on
at us
this,
again.
so.
Yep, I'm passing it. It's a hot potato. It looks like the same contract they've been giving us over and over again with absolutely zero changes or zero additions. They just basically took what we said and said, that's great, threw it in the trash and said, here's the contract, take it or leave it. That's what it feels like to me.
There are a couple of changes, but they are definitely small. Yeah, but I think basically what you're saying is true. There's a statement at the very end of the contract that does acknowledge that effectively giving the opportunity to supervisor, superintendent to make a decision about after-hour support for the township and police, and to the Old Orchard Park manager or director for let's say a need where we have support needed at the park, something that's affecting them directly. And that was a request I suggested because you know, Alpcetus is always all over the park, you know, and he knows what it is that's going on. And if something was wrong with some of the equipment that's local to them there, you know, he would be in a better position to evaluate the severity of it and the need for them to come in and, you know, and that. So, and it would come out of their individual budgets, so to speak, if you will. I mean, and it would be understood. And that's kind of what the whole backstory of that point was. And they did acknowledge it toward the end of the contract. But Jeremy's right. There are not a lot of topics that were incorporated into the contract. But when I read the contract, unfortunately, they didn't have red lines. And so for folks that aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, it's where you have a document and when you delete a word or you add a word, you've got some indication of either an underline or a bar in the margin that shows that something changed on that line and what it was. And unfortunately, that wasn't there. And so, you know, we're just looking at a file. And I admit I did not sit here and try to do a side-by-side comparison to the prior version. What I would say, though, is when I read it, didn't find, for some reason, I didn't find as much offensive as I did before. So I really do think there were some changes made, but I just can't be held to identify every one of them that was made. I guess my point here is we're getting to a point. They did also, as a point, Jeremy, they also added the hourly rate for support. They didn't do anything to address service quality. So in other words, like, you know, what if we're not getting the quality or the level of service that they need or we need? And what was another concept that was there? It was the
backups were the biggest one for me.
Yeah, sure. That's right. Yeah, they didn't. I don't think they did anything on that one. But just more of the idea of if we're going to be spending all this money, are they going to provide us anything that helps us ensure we're truly getting more for the money we're spending? And I didn't see a lot of verbiage in there for that. So, you know, here's my take on it, guys. I feel they didn't throw everything out to the extreme that I feel Mr. Spencer stated. I think he's not far off, but I don't think they did blatantly that exactly. I think what they did is they did make a few changes. There's a few alterations. There are some points that were changed in here. I'm not crazy about the contract, but at the same time, I kind of feel like we're in a situation that resembles a very hard negotiation where we are the ones who are kind of over the barrel here. We should have had this contract in place last year. They've been working with us and they've been maintaining their service with us, despite the fact that this contract hasn't been signed. They've made it pretty clear that they're not going to keep going forever, and that there's an end date. And when you look at the contract, they've plugged in a date in August, giving us time to work this out and put it to rest. Like I said, I'm not thrilled with the contract. It's already been reviewed by the attorney. He's not dissatisfied with it from a legal viewpoint. Jeremy and I were just concerned from a technology point and from some other verbiage points that we'd be familiar with in contracts. I would be somewhat comfortable, considering we're in a hard spot here, that we accept the version that we have here and move it forward. Just let's get the show on the road. You know, I don't know how much more we can make progress here with them, and I don't know whether it would be substantial enough in the end. You know, whether there'd be a monetary value or any other value. I don't know what we would get out of it, but I do think that we did make some progress. So I feel like, you know, it's better than it was, you know, a year ago or so. So that's where I am. Jeremy, why don't you chime in now and give me your opinion?
I mean, I'm right there with you. We're between a rock and a hard place. The question now is that with our requests and their inability or refusal to adhere to those requests and put those things that we're looking for into the contract, we have a choice. We're going to allow them to strong arm us into the contract that they want, which is fine from the legal standpoint. So it's a decent contract, or we can go out and start looking for other companies with the same certifications and see if they're actually comparable in the price, and see if any other companies could offer us that. Kind of leaning towards what the amount of work that's going to be involved in going out and digging up some other companies that have those certifications and provide these services is probably going to be an arduous one, because I don't think that there's a whole slew of them out there. So I guess I'm going to have to go with Tim. We'll probably just have to approve this contract, and then if we want to start looking for alternatives, we can start that process. And then when this contract is over, we can revisit it and make a decision based on new information at that time. I don't like it.
I'd just like to make a quick comment here on this. Like Tim mentioned, this came up over a year ago, or about a year ago or more, I guess now. We have had IT Right is our working for the township for quite some time. And I do remember one of the big stumbling blocks in the contract is that they said, you know, that after hours work would be charged on an hourly basis, but there was no hourly rate in there. So to me, that was a big red flag. You agree to a contract with no fixed amount you could be paying, you know, any amount per hour. Well, they have corrected that, and they've put it in there at $200 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. So that part is checked off. And I think given the experience we've had with IT Right, that they actually have, for the most part, you know, done a good job for us. I would like to make a motion to approve the contract with IT Right as presented and authorize the clerk and supervisor to execute the document.
I'd support that.
Okay. There's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Cummings. Any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
I suppose. Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the legal services misdemeanors. Tammy?
Hey, your packet contains an email from Chief David regarding contracting Jim Baccarella, the current Iosco County prosecutor, to handle misdemeanor township ordinance violations. Currently, our township attorney does not do criminal prosecution, therefore recommending Mr. Baccarella for this position. I would ask that the board consider approving Mr. Baccarella at the cost of $165 per hour to handle the township's misdemeanor ordinance violations. Services to be paid from 207-000-826.000 legal fees.
And
Okay, does
just
anybody
a
have
question for me.
questions?
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's okay. I was just gonna say, does anybody have any questions?
Just a question for me. So in this case, because they're offenses, this is money that even though we pay, it comes back through the courts winning the case, correct? So we're really technically not out money.
Right.
Okay, any other questions?
Could I elaborate or ask Steve real quick what the question is because these are criminal misdemeanors, whether or not because we might recoup fines and penalties that we're not out anything in terms of what Jim would be paid?
I guess we're not, just to clarify, Tim, we're not out any money should we win the case, correct? Because that money would be charged to the offender.
The way I see it is like when I first came on, I made clear, I said, I don't do criminal. And I didn't know that the township actually had any criminal misdemeanor, like misdemeanor citations left on its books. You know, most municipalities that go civil infraction, they are civil infraction, except for the motor vehicle code. Let's say there's a DUI and they opt into the motor vehicle code that allows us to prosecute locally and recoup those fines and penalties. I think those will probably be most of them, but even since I've been on board, there have been a couple of instances where Mark wanted to charge misdemeanors. I'm like, whoa, you know, I don't know if we can. I thought we converted, but either way, I think the thing that the board needs to conceptualize this as is like, it's kind of like an extension of me. If there is something where we're going to actually charge a misdemeanor as opposed to a civil infraction, you know, that's what a prosecutor is for. And Jim Baccarella has agreed to just basically operate as an extension of the agreement you guys already have with me, if and when it comes to that. And I believe, talking with Tammy and Jim, I think the estimate is like, you know, there's like at most 10 a year that go this route. But there isn't any guarantee. I just want to be clear. I don't think there's any guarantee that anything's going to be recouped. It's just a matter of, who's going to handle those types of prosecutions to the extent that the township code enforcement officer chooses to charge them as misdemeanors. Either way, because we go for cost recovery with civil ones too. As best we can and getting creative as possible. It's not really a difference that way. It's just a matter of who is best equipped to handle these particular types of things. So that's where I'm with Tammy on that. It's like, yeah, that's definitely, and Jim's on board too. Let's have him handle those. That's what he does all day long. It's criminal prosecution. So just to make sure that that's clear.
Oh, that's understood. It also enforces the ordinance.
I guess I move to approve Mr. Baccarella at the cost of $165 an hour to handle the township's misdemeanor ordinance violations. Services to be paid from account number 207-000-826.000 legal fees.
Support.
There's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbuff,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on, actually, it was pointed out. Sorry, I just got a leg cramp.
Oof.
Whoa, sorry. Yikes. It was pointed out by Mr. Palmer that we have a numbering issue. So technically, this one should be resolution number 2021-21, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Oh, it's to authorize issuance of capital improvement bonds, and we actually have Rick on the line if he is still around.
I'm here.
We thought this was going to be a fast one. Ha, fooled you. So Rick is on the line to answer any or I guess give a little narrative on resolution number 2021-21.
Yeah, this
Just
is
as a point of
similar
order,
to.
Just
Oh,
as
go
a
ahead.
point of order, I think we added under 4. Oh, where did we add rock?
We put it under other, so we haven't got to it
Okay,
yet.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, this is similar to the bond resolution that the board passed back in May for the drinking water revolving fund, the project that we're getting ready to start up in the field within the next week or so. This was for the CW, the SRF, the sewer project. This was delayed because the bids came in higher than what was initially anticipated by Eagle. So we had to revise the bond amount and therefore delay this process until now. With tonight's action on this bond resolution, later in the agenda, the recommendation to award the contract to RCL. This will put into motion a closing on this project with Eagle in the first week or two of August, which will then be a notice to proceed to the contractor and get the sewer project underway about 2 months later than what we originally anticipated. But realistically, this project was going to go through the end of 2022 anyway. So we shouldn't be all that far behind schedule, and we can move this thing along. And this one is the one that the township will receive about $1.4 million in principal forgiveness.
Okay, are there any questions for Rick on this resolution?
You recite it verbatim without looking?
I
No.
I paraphrased.
No, I was trying to read through it, and holy mackerel, Andy, it takes It's a long one.
Yes, yeah, it's like I said, it's basically identical to the language that was passed back in May for the water. The only thing is that this is for the sewer project.
Well, I would move that we adopt resolution 2021-21, authorize issuance of capital improvement bonds for the Charter Township of Oscoda to implement authorize issuance of a capital improvement bond for CWSRF sewer project.
Okay.
Support.
There's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Palmer for resolution 2021-21. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wursterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried.
Oh, one quick thing, Mr. Sutton, we just need your signature on pages 17 and 18 at this time. If you can get those signed originally, and we need four original copies, and just leave them with Tammy, and the next time I'm up there, I'll pick them up. So,
I will get those done for you, sir.
thank
Page
you.
17 and 18, four
Pages-
originals.
Yes, page 17 and 18, and just four originals of those two pages, and then we'll assemble the documents once I pick them up.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next on, we have resolution number 2021 we're changing it to 22, truth and taxation public hearing. I believe that Nancy is on the line. Possibly.
Can you hear me?
I sure
Yes.
can.
All right. Yep, I am here. So basically, what the resolution that's before you now is about, we need to have a truth and taxation hearing in order to, for the board to levy the maximum authorized millage. So I'm asking you to adopt a resolution to establish having that truth and taxation hearing at the next board meeting.
Okay. Is there any postings that have to occur in the paper for that? You might have-
Yes, I have already sent I've already sent the notice into the paper. Their deadline is the Friday, would have been last Friday. So I've already sent the notice into the paper, assuming that, as in for the last 25 years, that you would just
Right.
automatically go ahead and do it.
Right.
Oh, so if
No,
we
could
don't,
just be
then-
difficult.
Well, if you don't, then I'll have to call them and say, yank it.
Right. Okay.
I would
Any,
move-
yeah, any other questions for Nancy? Or, sorry, I interrupted you, Jeremy. Sounds like you were about ready to make a motion.
That's all right. It was a good question to see if there's any other questions.
Okay. Go for it.
Right, hearing none, I move that we adopt resolution number 2021-22 regarding truth and taxation for the public hearing to take part on Monday, July 26th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Support.
Support.
Wow, that was a lot. Jamie got it. Motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire. On that resolution, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wursterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on, we have ordinance number 2021-270, commercial marijuana facilities ordinance. Nicole is on the line, I believe. Amy indicated she was coming in.
I'm here.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. Just here to answer any questions.
Why do we have so many bars in town, but we cannot have a designated consumption establishment?
I'll have to get back to you on that answer. We've just decided to keep it to 2 for 2 provisioning, and we're just,
That was a
I'll get back to
recommendation
you.
from the planning commission.
Thank you,
Right.
Bill.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, everything in the document was probably recommended by the planning commission. I'm just asking why we're not, why we're not going to have a designated consumption establishment. I mean, we can run down to the Edelweiss and have a beer, or many of the local drinking establishments. But if somebody wants to come into town and open a little area for people to sit down and
Ah,
consume, then
Correct me if I'm
we're not
wrong, it's
allowing that.
because-
That's a big zero.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's not because of the township, it's because of the state law. It doesn't provide for that license.
That would be a good answer.
that is a good answer.
Aha.
So,
No, you guys could if you wanted to. Most municipalities do not want to.
Yeah, that is a permitted license, but we opted not to pursue that avenue.
can you tell me why, Bill? Give me more information on that. I don't understand why not.
We felt that, for people just to be able to purchase the marijuana when they want and then consume it however they want to consume it. You can't consume it on the premises where you buy it.
Exactly.
And so therefore, why do you really need some special place to go to consume it? Why can't you just take it home and do it there?
You're absolutely right. We should close every bar in town. Whoa,
Okay.
wait a minute. Well, that's probably not a good idea. I just see, I mean, everybody's kind of pointing at the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana is kind of the same thing as the alcohol side. And well, we've got bars in town, so I'm just asking, there's quite a few people around here that smoke marijuana. Why don't we have or offer a license for a designated consumption establishment so that there's a place for them to go hang out and consume?
Well, like Mr. Friel said, most communities don't allow that, so we opted to take that avenue. This ordinance isn't carved in stone, so it can be changed, and that can be added down the road if we feel later on that maybe that's something we wanted to add. You can do that. This isn't by any means an ordinance that's carved in stone that can never be changed.
Right on.
I'm glad you did not allow it to begin with. So I guess we can see how things go, but.
Well, we can already see how things go. I mean, the only difference is you're going to be able to buy it in town instead of crossing the town border and buying it and bringing it home. So, I mean, I don't see that there's been any gigantic problems with it as of yet. I do see the 2 provisioning centers and the 2 recreational retailers. Are those 2 licenses going for the recreation? Are they going to be separate from the medical facilities? And are we even going to really should we even really address medical facilities? From what I understand, the licensing for medical marijuana users in the county has dropped like 90% since recreational became law. So if nobody's going to open a medical facility, do we really even need that in the ordinance at this time?
Well, up until just recently, the state was only giving the recreational licenses to those who already had the medical marijuana license, because the process of getting the medical marijuana license required a good deal of paperwork and investigation and so on and so forth. And so once that's done, then permitting the license for the recreational is just signing some papers. It's a pretty simple process. So up until just recently, the only licenses for recreational that were being given out were to those licensees that already had the medical marijuana license. Now that has been changed recently to where someone can go in and apply for a recreational license. However, now they have to go through all the qualification process that the medical marijuana license people went through when they were doing theirs. But
sure.
There really is no point to trying to acquire a medical marijuana license now, because most everybody is giving up their medical marijuana cards when they can just
Right.
go and purchase the product. So
So
yeah.
basically, we're just kind of writing the ordinance as an interim until the state settles on what they're going to do. And to that end, it says that we're going to have 2 provisioning centers in the ordinance, right? Or is that at? So it's got
Yeah.
2 provisioning centers and 2 recreational retailers. Are those going to be? Is that 4 licenses total, where there's going to be 2 medical and 2 recreational?
No. Well, it could be, but I believe that the 2 medical marijuana licenses have been applied for so far are switching to the recreational marijuana. So there really wouldn't be any reason at this point for anybody to apply for a medical marijuana license, although they could if they choose, but it really wouldn't make much sense for anybody to do that now.
So right now, if I remember correctly, we have 2 licenses in town for medical facilities, and both of those licenses have been acquired by someone or some entity. So if we add 2 new ones for the recreational retail side, are those folks that have the medical license going to get first right of refusal for the 2 recreational licenses that we're about to provide?
They will be, if they're the first ones that apply, yes.
So there could be up to 4 licenses, 2 of each. And if they're not the first ones in the door, then there's a possibility that they have a medical one, but they could not get a recreational because someone beat them to it.
Well, the thing of it is, nobody could apply for the recreational license since we passed a resolution banning them up until now. Back a year or more ago, we passed a resolution not allowing the recreational because the state hadn't put, the permanent rules in place. So we opted out of the recreational at the time until the state put permanent rules in place. Well, they put those rules in place, and so now we're taking the action to approve the recreational marijuana along with the medical marijuana that we approved several years ago. And so that's what we're talking about here tonight.
Right. I'm just trying to get, I read through it, but it didn't really, the legalese, if you will, didn't really specify to me whether or not there were going to be 4 licenses or 2 licenses, and whether or not the people that currently have the medical license would be able to get first right of refusal, which you've said that they're not going to get that. So they're going to have to be first in line if they want to change their business to include recreational and the medical. That's right. Yeah.
Look, Bill, I have a question. Because in the planning commission, this was discussed a lot to get to this ordinance, but wasn't this discussed that the 2 people who had the medical would have first right of refusal for the recreational, just simply because we didn't have the ordinance in place and they've already spent the capital? Wasn't that a discussion in the planning commission?
Well, and maybe Mr. Friel could comment on this better than I could from a legal standpoint, but I think the point is that we couldn't make any determination on who would get recreational since we didn't have an ordinance allowing recreational. And until we approve the ordinance, no one can apply for the recreational. So once we put the ordinance in place and approve it, if we can approve that tonight, then they can move forward. And I know they're both entities were waiting to see whether or not they were going to, especially one was going to wait to see whether they were going to open their doors and spend any more money on the facility if we weren't going to approve the recreational ordinance. So I don't know, maybe Mr. Friel could expand on that if you like.
Yeah, when I came in on this one, we had already had, or we're in the midst of our go around in Baldwin Township, and the planning commission here in Oscoda borrowed significantly on what we had developed, in that hubris, if you will, of the litigation. Now, in terms of what going to Jeremy's questions, which I think are awesome, and they're awesome policy questions, really, ultimately for the board to grapple with, and there's no right or wrong answer. But I couldn't agree more with the ethos of what you're saying. It's like, all right, you got all these bars out there. What about, why can't you have a puff joint? Well, whatever. That's for you guys. It's political. But I didn't know at the time that I was doing the drafting or the redrafting on what was in place. If there were provisioners under the prior legislation, you have your, going back to the mid 2000s, you have your Medical Marijuana Act, then you have the one that came around in the Facilities Act for, growers and provisioners, and then you had the new one in 2018 with the Rec Act, the adult rec. I didn't know, it wasn't an issue to me. Where
the fuck were you on?
Whoa.
Time out. I'm trying to find who's muted. Okay. I got that person
Wow.
muted. Sorry, no idea. Sorry.
Hey,
Comes in quick.
so
I gotta let
anyway,
him in. Sorry.
yeah, whatever.
You did good.
I didn't know, where, who was in terms of, and not that it mattered, in terms of who were provisioners looking to get rec permits and all that, but it's a different analysis. It's for the municipality. Ultimately, you, as a board, on the recommendation of the planning commission, have to go through this hearing process to decide, how many provisioners are you going to have, how many growers are you going to have of these different classes, and then how many, rec adult permit facilities you're going to have. There isn't anything that I know, and maybe Bill, I hate to ping pong it back to Bill, but I didn't know that there was anybody in particular that we were looking at relative to the rec permits that were already based on existing provisioning permits. It didn't seem to be an issue. Bill's absolutely right. This is kind of an organic thing. You guys can amend this at any point. And also going to some of the points that Jeremy raises, you can amend it to say, okay, let's go from 2 over here to 4 over there, and from 6 over here to 2 over there. But the other thing that comes into play that I don't know if it's been presented to you guys yet is with regard to the adult rec, and what we've been grappling with down in Baldwin Township is that if there are a limited number of spots and there are competing applicants, then we have to get into this competitive criteria. And I don't know if you guys have had anything put in front of you on that. That is something that I put into the ordinance, or I suggest, well, the draft that's in front of you. That's something you guys at the board level can decide and approve, so it doesn't have to go through an ordinance amendment process every time. But the competitive criteria for adult rec is very controversial, and it's being litigated every day as we speak. And we just don't know. So if you have a limited number of spots, something to keep in mind for you guys on the board. If you have a limited number of spots and you have multiple applicants for those, you have as many or more applicants for the spots, then you have to then apply these competitive criteria. That's my biggest concern in any scenario that you guys as a board are looking at, is then we have to have this competitive criteria where the state just says you got to do it, but it doesn't give us any guidance. And it's kind of a hit, or it's kind of trial by fire right now. But
you're saying
otherwise, it's a matter of policy. It's just what you guys want right now in terms of how many of these, how many of these, how many of these.
So you're saying that right now, if we approve this ordinance with only 2 licenses, that if 5 people apply, 2 of them being locals, 2 of them being, in the state, and 1 of them being out of state, now we have to come up with criteria.
Yes.
The one upon which we're going to judge them.
Yep.
It's not a first come first serve basis where person number 1 gets to say, we look over their application and say yes or no, and then move on to the next if it's a no. They all have to be considered.
Yep.
I didn't Zoom, I guess I didn't attend every planning commission meeting that this was discussed, but I guess I am under the same assumption that Steve mentioned, and that's that both medical marijuana people that hold the license were very vocal in regard to wanting to move forward with the recreational, and expressed that interest on numerous times. And I guess thought that there was discussion that led me to believe that those were the 2 that we would be looking at based on the investment they've already done in the community. So that was my, I guess.
That doesn't appear to be the case.
But if it's not in the resolution, I mean, if it's not in the ordinance, you're indicating now that we can put it in the ordinance.
Yeah,
Or no, because it's already been reviewed by.
you guys can do whatever you want right now. I mean, there are two different issues. One is, what does the ordinance say? What's your legislation say in terms of how many of this type of facility are we going to allow versus this type of facility versus that type of facility? That's what's in front of you right now. Now, the particular case scenario that you're describing is there are these provisioners existing that were, that are hell bent to also become rec dealers. It's a whole different issue, because if you guys say there's only going to be, no matter what, there's only going to be 2 provisioners, and then there's going to be only 2 recs, and then tonight anybody listening that says, "Oh, me too," and they put in their application, so now you got 4 rec applicants. You're going to have these competitive criteria in place, which I told the planning commission about, and but I think we're going concrete operationally on this premise that there's just these 2 that are existing provisioners that want to be recs, which is kind of a dangerous premise, to the extent there could be more. So the way to look at it is from a board standpoint. Right now, you're looking at a proposed ordinance and a recommendation from the planning commission pursuant to the zoning enabling act that you adopted. But you guys are absolutely free to say, you know what? No, we agree with everything they say, except we want to allow 4 provisioners, or we want to allow 4 recs, but everything else is the same. You have the ability to do that. You have the ability to entertain what Jeremy was saying, in terms of like use facilities. And get into where they can, public puff parks, and stuff like that, that there are some issues in municipalities over, but.
I'm not trying to redo what the planning commission, I'm not trying to go against what the planning commission is recommending. I'm just, I guess I did not attend every planning commission meeting where this was talked about, but I think we even talked about it at a township board level. I'm sorry, I'm getting maybe meetings confused, but I thought that the first part of refusal, I guess, or whatever, would be to the medical facilities that are currently in the community.
That was brought up as part of the original language of what I suggested from Baldwin to Oscoda, and then there was somebody who was involved in the dialogue, who introduced what Bill was talking about. And it's like, there's been a recent change, and that one doesn't have to lead to the other, and that requiring, and it's still the case in Baldwin, requiring an adult rec place to also have a provisioning license can be, in the demographic, can be cost prohibitive. And so your planning commission, I would say, had the wisdom of disassociating those 2 things and saying they don't have to, in order to be an applicant, a viable applicant for a rec permit, you don't have to have a provisioning permit. And because once, and it's true, I mean, I agree with, I forget who that was, but it's I've seen it. It's true. Once you allow adult rec, the economics of provisioning, I don't want to say it bottoms out, but it becomes a very different analysis, and especially up here where we are. And so that's kind of what you're looking at right now. You look at each, I would suggest you look at each class of facility. You have growers / processors, provisioners, rec, retailers, basically. And how many do you want of each? And the planning commission has come up with, and kind of based on the matrix that came out of Baldwin Township, they assign the numeric values of each one of those classes, and they're putting it in front of you guys and suggesting it to you. This is what we think. It's up to you guys to say yes or no, or somewhere in between. If you think that there should be more rec permits, you could say, instead of 2, we're going to allow 4 tonight. In other words, you can do whatever, you can basically do whatever you want with that.
Well, I do like what the citizen said earlier about the changing the permit fee schedule to make it non-cost prohibitive for smaller farmers. You know, if you're just going to kind of do it as a hobby in your backyard, or as long as it's permitted, of course, then I don't think that a $5,000 permit fee is really applicable. I think that's a bit egregious, and I would like to see that permit fee scheduled a little more reasonably for the A, B, and C licenses.
Well, you have to understand, Jeremy, that that fee is based on what it costs the township to process the applications, to visit the site, to hold planning commission meetings, to inspect the facilities. Those costs are mandated by the state that, you know, you can charge that amount the first year. Then after that, you have to show that what your actual costs are. So I disagree with, you know, maybe things are different in Colorado, I don't know, but the fees that the township charges are to recoup costs for our police to, you know, do random inspections of the facilities, to process the applications. There's a lot of work that goes in from our zoning administrator, the planning commission, in processing these applications. And I feel that, you know, a $5,000 annual fee for this to the township is warranted.
I
Right,
agree
but
with
you're
Bill on
talking,
that.
but we're also talking about, you know, I mean, the difference between 100 plant grow and thousands of plant grows. So it's the difference between, you know, the local ice cream shop that wants to scoop a little piece of ice cream onto your cone and the factory that's going to be making cones in a production facility. And should the licensing fee for those two entities be the same?
From the township, yes.
Yeah. I think Jeremy, right now, I think yes. Yeah, I agree with Bill on that one. I don't think as a practical matter, you're going to have much of a disparity between, we haven't at least seen so far between the categories of processors that you're talking about. And if there is, I would say, okay, let them come forth and make a compelling argument, you know, viable economic argument to show us why we shouldn't charge the max. We, Oscoda Township, shouldn't charge the max that the state law allows us. The state legislature, in all their invenerable wisdom, has suggested that $5,000 is what it's worth. You know, I think that to the extent you're going to allow stuff, yeah, there's where it should be at, subject to revisitation if somebody comes forward with good, concrete, empirical evidence that suggests that we should modify that. I think what you guys maybe want to grapple more with isn't so much in terms of the class of growers, even though on former Air Force Base, you do have a really unique circumstance there, but I haven't heard it so far in terms of just in my role and capacity here as council and trying to help develop this ordinance. But I'm thinking in terms of between rec and provision licenses, what you might want to, if anything, what you guys as a board might want to consider tonight is, are you cool with what the planning commission has suggested in terms of 2 and 2, or do you want to maybe allow more? It's completely within your province to do.
I'm right on board with them having, you know, starting out with 2 licenses and going that direction. If we have to come up with some competition criteria, well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'll take your
You're gonna have to, for sure.
right, and I'll take
telling you
Mr.
right now.
Palmer's and your recommendation, Mr. Friel, on the permit fees. You guys say it's going to cost that much to do it. Well, then we'll run at that rate, and then I guess we'll reevaluate when the time comes. But I would like to see, I mean, we're talking about, you know, one of the things here at our township board is bringing businesses to Oscoda. And maybe it's time that we pioneer something. And maybe it's time that we don't say, oh, did any other townships do it? Maybe we be the first. And let's get a designated consumption establishment in here and see how it goes.
Right on.
That would be, I mean,
you
that's
as a
my
board, but I don't disagree with that as a policy point for you guys to at least consider as a board.
I mean, anybody can tell me why, I mean, an absolutely compelling reason why we should not have a designated consumption establishment, but continue to have bars?
I wasn't involved in all of the earlier talks. I came in at the very tail end of all of this, but I could spend a little bit of time looking through minutes and seeing if there is, if I can find anything regarding that.
I haven't heard any reasons to date why a consumption facility would be an absolutely terrible, horrible thing. So I guess that's why I'm asking you and the board and Mr. Friel if anybody's got any compelling reason why we should absolutely not offer a designated consumption establishment in Oscoda.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand it. I mean, you're comparing it to a bar, Jeremy. A bar, you purchase the product there and you consume it there.
Yep, that's what a designated consumption establishment is.
But you're not
Precisely.
purchasing it there. You're coming in to smoke it, aren't you?
No, you have to buy it there. It's just like, well, from what I understand, it's you walk up to the counter, you say, I'd like some of this and that, and this is the apparatus that I would like to partake it with. And then they set you up, you pay your fee to rent the area or whatever it is you're going to do. And then you sit down and watch TV or melt into the couch or whatever it is you're going to do. But it's no different than going out and having a couple vodka tonics and a 12-pack of beer at the bar. I mean,
I don't believe you can purchase the product at that facility.
So you'd have to bring it in with you?
I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at this point in time, the planning commission did not want to look at doing this right now. As Mr. Friel's indicated, we can make a change down the road, but I guess I would rather not be the pioneer. Like to pioneer another concept besides this one. Personally, but that's just my 2 cents.
I understand that. I mean, that's
got a
common
question,
consensus
Sam.
with the not in my backyard, but that's what's holding up the whole town from moving forward on a lot of different issues.
But,
You know?
but for what it's worth, I mean,
Tim, I have-
right now you have proposed ordinance in front of you. What I would suggest is that I love the fact that you guys are even talking about this, consumption facilities, and that's more personal and philosophical than anything. But right now you have an ordinance that's been hammered out by your planning commission and put in front of you with a recommendation for approval. I would suggest, and it's just a suggestion, there's no legal, boundary to this, but that you consider
And before
that.
you say that, can I ask you a question?
Well, hold on.
And before we get your suggestion?
What I'm suggesting is pretty loose, and that is that you simply consider the ordinance that's been put in front of you, which has these variables that we've discussed. And if you want to change anything at all, then look at the numbers of those facilities that have been addressed. Then if you want to get into anything more, like, on-site consumption and stuff like that, handle that separately, maybe, send that back to the planning, or ask the planning commission to get into that so we don't muck up, what we're talking about right now. So, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, no, that's fine. I appreciate that suggestion. I'm with Jeremy. I'm with good. I want to limit these. It's just not something I agree with, but it's state law. It's state law. So the voters have spoken. I get that. But we also have 50% of the voters that don't want this at all. However, I don't think it's fair that people came in and spent a lot of capital in this town and they don't get first right of consideration. So if we pass this tonight, because if we make a change, we can't pass it. If we pass this, we can come back, next meeting, whenever, and come up with a point system where, i.e., let's say somebody who has a valid medical state license from the state of Michigan would get 50% of the points to obtain one of these permits. That's something we could do relatively soon if we needed to do, correct? And still pass this to get it moving.
Competitive criteria you need imminently. You need now.
But can we pass that with it, or does it have to go back for publication and back to the county?
The ordinance in front of you it suggests that the actual competitive criteria will be something separately adopted by the board by resolution. So in other words, you don't have to have it be as a matter of ordinance each time. You can change it and so forth. But the ordinance itself that's in front of you provides for that fortuity, that instance that you would the board would adopt the actual competitive criteria. So if you guys as a board are foreseeing that you know, with 2 recs and 2 provisions permits, that you're going to have a competition for limited spots, like 3 people, 4 people, or whatever, competing for 2 spots. That's where the competitive criteria thing comes in. We're going to have to adopt those too.
At the
I
next
think
meeting.
you answered my question, so thank you, sir.
Yeah.
No, not at
Yeah.
this meeting, we can discuss it.
Right, but we're going to have to do it quickly. That is-
Yes, right.
Quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, right now, we're looking at approving this ordinance as it's written, and then directing the planning commission to start drawing up the criteria for competition for those
Yeah.
licenses, and
Yes.
then look into the designated consumption establishments, maybe look at some that are around the state.
Right.
I have heard that there's one in Ann Arbor, and you do have to purchase there. You can't bring it in with you, and I can't imagine that they would, you know, set it up much differently than that. But we can
Yeah.
cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. So
There's
I
that.
suppose I would.
Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
I didn't see in here where it talks about the districts that it could be in. Like, I know before we talked about B2 and nothing in the B1. Is that, I didn't see that in the ordinance, and should it be in this ordinance or is that somewhere else?
So it's not in the ordinance. It does not specify if it's allowed in State Street Business Neighborhood or B2. As far as outdoor grow, it is specific to that's only allowed in industrial and agriculture. But that's the only type specified.
That's right, Jamie, and it's a super good point, and we kind of left it open, if I recall correctly, at the planning commission level. There are other ways when you don't even have to get into the competitive criteria that we can legislate based on distancing requirements. Like you can say, all right, they can only be allowed in certain zoning districts, and at that, they can't be any more than, say, for example, I'm just spewing it, but 1,000 feet apart or 2,000 feet apart. There are other ways that you can regulate it that I think you're getting at, that if I recall correctly, where I left it at dealing with your planning commission at, they didn't get into that, and they could, but you're right. You know, it's
Should they?
I guess I don't understand why they did. I guess I'm confused as to why it wasn't addressed. When medical was first brought to the table, there was a lot of discussion in regard to that it would not be in the B1 district, which is now not called the B1 district. Sorry, I'm not sure the exact terms.
Yeah, me too. Sorry.
Yeah,
I think
so
Bill could actually probably speak better to the history on that.
was there a reason it wasn't designated to a certain district, Bill?
But we didn't. The last I recall, we decided not to address it at that point. You guys always can, and I think it's a good tactic. I mean, if you have concerns in that regard, to do that, it's just at the time and when and where we were dealing with what we were dealing, it wasn't something that the planning commission wanted to address right then. Bill might have better history, it probably does, better history on that, but.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with state law, because state law kind of dictates where these things can go and where they can't go right now.
Yeah, that's
what kind of district next to schools, churches, that kind of stuff. There's so many.
That goes back to that's different.
That's
that goes back to the last act, 2016. But now, you know, we still have the ability to legislate those, just like with billboards. Think about it with billboards. Same thing. We can say where they can be and how far apart they can be, and effectively dictate exactly where they're going to go legitimately. You know, we can do that. It's just that at the time that was brought up, when I got brought on board and I injected the what we had been working with Baldwin, it wasn't identical because we were being sued and so forth, and we were dealing with the particular issues to that. But the planning commission at the time was content not to deal with those spacing, you know, what Jamie's talking about, those spacing requirements and so forth. It was more like the numeric values of how many of these types of processors we're going to allow, how many provisioners we're going to allow, and how many retail establishments are we going to allow, and then possibly come back and revisit it, understanding that with regard to the latter, we're going to have competitive criteria. We're going to have to develop that for you guys to apply at a board level, because all of these are special use permits, and you guys ultimately have to say. So, but
Tim,
yeah,
I have a question. Sorry, Tim, I have a question about this competitive criteria that we keep talking about. So, I mean, I guess my thought is, I don't know what it looks like. Is there something that we would essentially be looking to adopt that would be, let's say the state provides a basic competitive criteria and we simply adopt that, kind of like
you'd hope. No, the state, like I say, in all of its venerable wisdom, has said here, for these types of situations, you have to have competitive criteria.
So then my question is,
do we
get into trouble with how we define it?
Yes.
And therefore get into some kind of I mean, my thoughts literally come down to lawsuits over discrimination
Yes.
and things of this nature.
Oh, totally.
Because we're a government entity. So how do we avoid and maintain some kind of an equality, I guess, even though we're attempting to distinguish?
That's exactly what other municipalities are ahead of you on in terms of being sued over. Baldwin being one of them, right? Your neighbor, right to the south. So, and we've dealt with that, and we dug into a lot of the developing law on point. And you're right. It's like, you know, if you have a situation where you have 2 spots and 4 competitors, where it's like the city of Detroit, it had a really elaborate tiered scoring system down there, and my God, they got sued in the federal district court on multiple counts, and it was upheld. I mean, it was a preliminary injunction was issued recently to enjoin the enforcement of the Detroit ordinance because their competitive criteria was insufficient. It's been going on in Warren and Livonia, and we've been trying to take that as we go and in Baldwin and mold, hoping that there won't be a situation where we have to apply it. And I hope the same for Oscoda, but the lesser amount of slots that you allow, the greater the possibility you're going to have multiple people competing for limited spots. So, Tim, to go to your question, there isn't an answer yet. There is no solidified case law that says what's legit, because the statute that requires us to promulgate these criteria doesn't give us any guidance. So, I'm just using general constitutional parameters. So are other attorneys in other jurisdictions. They're getting sued left and right. It's one of the reasons why, as a practical matter, you consider allowing more spots than for sure there are applicants. So if you know there are 2, then you allow 4.
But that just creates a whole overrun possibility. I mean, it's not really addressing the problem. It's just,
Right.
I'm sorry, I wasn't in favor of this in the first place, and now to see that we could find ourselves going further down the road and getting involved in litigation, like other townships have that you've pointed out.
Yep.
Just goes right back into the whole point of, this was very much sold on how much money this was going to make, but I don't think that this is about making money. It's about any money that's made is going to be after you've deducted a whole lot of legal fees.
Well, we have insurance for that. I'll tell you the other cases, it's covered. So it's about policy. I would say first of all, my advice is, and having been in your exact position before as a council person or a board member, it's about policy first and foremost. And you have the funds and the insurance, if nothing else, to back up sound policy decisions. So I would still focus on what's best for the community as a matter of policy. And even if we have imperfect guidance from our state legislature, which is neither the first nor will it be the last time, we deal with what we're dealt and do our best.
Right.
And I'm fortunately, I love the fact that I'm able to borrow and parlay from what I've dealt with in other municipalities for Oscoda, which is really cool. And it just from lending what we've learned, what other municipalities have paid for in litigation, and funded through their insurance policy for the most part. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. I think it's a matter of policy for you guys to articulate at a board level and what you want to see that be. We will come up with the best we can come up with in terms of criteria. The question though is whether or not you're going to allow it. And I would say if you're inclined to do it, then let's deal with the next level if and as it comes.
Well, I think we've had a lot of discussion on this. I mean, again, we have an ordinance that was drafted by the Planning Commission, brought to us. We can act on it tonight, or we can ask for revisions. I guess I personally thought there was going to be something in there that talked about the people with current licenses being able to make first application, because I thought we were trying to, I guess and I'm, again, not even close to being an expert on this subject or even have a general knowledge of it, to be honest with you. But I thought that, we all kind of discussed the fact that medical, because of the card, because of recreational moving forward, that medical was going to kind of phase out, and it was only natural that those medical centers were going to want to do the recreational. And like Steve indicated, because we currently have 2 in our community that have already, I know that neither one is technically opened, but they've invested a tremendous amount of money in getting their buildings up and running, waiting for us to pass this recreational ordinance that we have tabled for quite a while. So I definitely don't want to add more to the community. We wanted to kind of keep it at a tight rein to begin with, I guess. So I don't want to add more, but I don't want to not have those 2 entities that have been coming to every planning commission meeting, doing everything that they've been asked to do, with the assumption that I think that they were going to be moving towards recreational. I'm just hoping that we're giving them the fair shot. So if that makes any sense.
Well, according to Tim, that language is in there. We're just going to have to develop it very quick if we get a lot of applicants. So pending that, I'm good with making a motion to pass ordinance number 2021-270, commercial marijuana facilities ordinance, for the Charter Township of Oscoda, County of Oscoda, State of Michigan, and authorize the clerk to execute as soon as possible.
And I'll support that motion.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Palmer.
Supervisor, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from Bill Palmer about the different districts, about why that's not outlined in the ordinance.
Yeah, Jimmy, that's a good question. I think, we fashioned this ordinance with the help of Mr. Friel, based on the ordinance that he drafted for Baldwin Township, like he indicated. So we basically worked with him to draft this ordinance. And it was with his discussion that there are other ways to restrict where these facilities can go. Because as you recall, we did specify in the medical marijuana ordinance that they could not be in the B1, which is now the SBN district. I think perhaps we could add that language here once we've passed this. I think the whole point is to get this, because I think the people that were applying for the medical facilities are, they can't do anything until we have this ordinance in place. They can't apply to the state until this is in place. And once we've done that, my comments at the Planning Commission were I really wanted to increase it to 4 facilities, but they felt, well, no, we put it at 2, let's leave it at 2. And so that's what we've done. We can change that at any time we want. Like I said before, this isn't carved in stone. I think we can make some provisions and add to this later on that it can only be in the B2 district or the WB3 district, similar to what we had for the medical marijuana ordinance. That's easy to change and add to this, and we can certainly do that.
I would really like to see that happen before this is approved.
Well, I think we could approve this contingent on adding that language to the ordinance.
I would appreciate that.
Or maybe since you have a motion and a second, and this is awesome discussion, maybe approving the ordinance as written, but also with condition that the planning commission please revisit exactly what Jamie's talking about. And I'm hearing other board members talking about in terms of going into district restrictions and distancing and stuff like that. I'm just thinking procedurally, if in terms of how to approve what's been proposed, but also asking for more action to be undertaken.
Sure, because this
I think
isn't
that's
the
a great
last,
idea.
this isn't the last of this ordinance that we'll be dealing with over time. I'm quite confident that at some point in the future, we will probably be adding facilities to this going down the road. I don't think 2 is enough to get us out of the possible litigation process of having a tiered criteria system. I think the easiest thing to do would just be, to our ordinance, add more facilities that, if whatever the market will bear, that's what will determine, who wants to come in here. So it's easy enough to change the ordinance. That might be a better solution than trying to put in some sort of a grading system for, qualification and a ranking system for applicants. But
We're going to have to do that though, no matter what. We have to have something as standby.
And we can do that. But to Jamie's point, I think we can pass this resolution contingent on adding language that restricts it from the State Street Business District.
Or
Well, I was gonna say, couldn't we just pass, if Mr. Westerbarth would amend possibly his motion and just carry on with the same rules that were for the medical? I mean, because then that would have those limits in place, wouldn't it?
It's
I
different.
guess I would like to just pass this ordinance as written, so there's no question on what we voted on. And then go back to the planning commission with our wants very quickly.
There you
But
go.
that's going to be separate from this motion. So this motion, my motion is verbatim what's presented in the board packet and what we discussed and what's been published in the newspaper. So I would like that motion called for vote.
Okay, so the motion is by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
No,
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Westerbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
No,
Ms. Richards,
No. Did it pass? Yes. Motion passed. And just to be clear, the only reason I'm voting no is because I wanted which area we were allowing it in to begin with.
And why don't you make a motion to then send that issue back to the planning commission?
Okay, I'll make a motion that the planning commission immediately address the
Zoning districts.
the zoning districts allowed
What Jamie said.
be similar to the medical marijuana.
to not include the SBN district.
Yeah, so not just basically to not include the whatever the B1 district is now called, sorry.
All
Is that
that-
the downtown area?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't want any dispensaries downtown?
no,
Nope.
May I ask why?
for the same reason we didn't want the medical marijuana ones downtown, so,
You
or
mean
that I didn't anyways.
right next to the bars down there, you mean?
Yep, right
Here
next to the
downtown?
bars, Jeremy.
Okay.
Yep.
But, okay.
Is there a second on that so you guys can discuss it?
I'll second it.
And okay, cool.
And I'm sorry, what is the correct term of the B1 district now, Bill?
SSBN.
SSBN,
Yes.
State Street Business Neighborhood?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I apologize for that, not
That's
knowing that.
crazy.
Okay, so there's a motion by
Yeah.
Miss,
And
And I guess, seeing you have that motion, would you amend it to include having the planning commission develop competitive criteria as well?
Yes, I would amend that motion to do that.
Yeah, thank you on that.
Okay, there's a motion by Richard, support by McGuire.
Does she still support that motion with the amendment?
I was just gonna ask her that.
Oh, sorry.
In regard to not allowing in the SSBN district and then adding the competitive criteria development by the planning commission. Do you support that addition, Ms. McGuire?
Sure.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we now are at the 9:36. I know we've discussed this before about needing or not needing to extend, but I think until we decide, I need a motion to extend the meeting past 9:30 to complete.
So moved.
Support.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire to extend the meeting to completion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to other, we have the record policy. Tammy?
Okay, in your packet, you'll find a memo from Chief David regarding the previous concerns from the record policy. He addressed the listed typos and would like to monitor the policy as written at this time.
I see that he added the changes that that were typos, and I spoke with the chief. He has sufficiently talked me out of the list, since we don't have a whole lot of records, and we can change the policy later if the time is required. The only other thing that I requested is that they be required to take credit cards if they're going to be on our tow list. He disagrees with that. What does the board feel?
But I didn't get the.
Oh, sorry. The question, but basic, unless anybody else has any other questions about the tow policy, I'm okay with it as written. The only thing that I would like to see in there is I'd like to see the requirement for taking credit cards. Most people have credit cards. A lot of people don't carry cash. And the chief's point was that we can't tell the business that they will take credit cards. And I basically rebutted with, he's correct. We don't have the ability to tell them what they're going to do with their business, but we can tell them that they will not be on our list if they don't adhere to our policy. And if our policy says no magnetic signs, you will wear the correct clothing and you will take credit cards. If they don't adhere to those things, then they get removed from said list.
So what are you afraid of happening if they don't take credit cards?
People can't pay them. I mean, talking about, I would think that a majority of the time that a police officer is requesting a tow from someone on the list because somebody doesn't know a local tower, they need to be able to pay that person. And if they're on vacation and they're not carrying a bunch of cash with them and they need to pay the wrecking company needs to be able to take payments in multiple ways, not just cash.
Don't they bill them or bill their insurance company?
Yeah.
Depends on the company.
No. I've always seen you have to pay up front.
They've always made me pay up front. Sometimes the insurance company reimburses. Otherwise, you can call, if you call your insurance company directly and they send the tow, sometimes they'll just cover it. But if a police officer's calling because, you got pulled over for whatever reason, or you're stuck on the side of the road and they just grab the next guy on the list and he or she shows up to tow the vehicle and the person's standing there ready to pay with a credit card and they say, oh, we don't take credit cards.
Well, you also have to be in an area that, if you're in a certain area with no cell service, if you have the square, you can't take a credit card payment anyways. So what would you just tell them, SOL? I
Oh,
mean,
well, then we'll
And
pay, then
no,
you can, we'll
no,
take you
and
back to the shop and
I-
you can pay there.
yeah, I just,
And no, Ann, I can respond to that. No, when, down in Standish,
Mhm.
so about a year ago, I hit a deer and totaled out a minivan. And a wrecker from Standish came to get us, and it was right in the middle of like I-75, and the guy did take a credit card and he didn't run it. He just wrote all the information down on the paper
mhm.
and ran it the next day, which was not a problem. You know, it worked for me, and it's like that's what that record did. That's so. In other words, the point about needing to have cell signal, the needing to have anything, they can do more. They can just write it down and run it manually when they get back to the office.
Yeah, we're talking about
And they
offering
do,
all these additional
because that's
services. Oh, sorry,
taxpayer.
go ahead, Tim.
No. I just finished my thought. Sorry. Just everyone's got so much to say. And I'm just
Yeah, I
trying to
know.
keep the whole thought in here.
Well, I mean,
So,
we're talking
but,
about adding all these additional services to the water bill payments and all these additional services here and making it easier for people to pay. And then we're going to have a record policy that makes it more difficult. That just doesn't seem like it's in line with with what we're trying to do here.
Well, right,
Didn't
but I
understand
mean,
where you're coming from, that's all. I didn't know the whole backstory.
yeah, I mean, I would assume that the main towers in town take credit card payments, but just maybe not on site, but they can take the information down and then get back to their, said offices and run the card
Right.
if need be.
I'm just asking,
Exactly.
you know, I'm
Picture of
just,
it,
I
whatever.
mean, if the board doesn't want it on there, if the consensus of the board is to leave it off, I mean, and those that agree with the chief, I'm not gonna stand here and on the
Right.
soapbox for 4 hours. I'm just saying that I think
Well,
that we should have the ability to take credit cards from the towing companies that the township calls out to tow your vehicle. And if we want to, if we're going to put it in the policy, we can't make them do it, but we can tell them that if you want to be on this list, you will take credit cards. Just like if you want to be on
right.
this
Yeah.
list, you will not use magnetic signs. If you want to be on this list, your vehicle will be marked properly. If you want to be on this list, you will wear the proper clothing. And all of those things are reported to the by the officer on site. And if the officer on site notices that they're showing up with improperly marked vehicles or with improper attire, then they will notify the chief, and the chief can deal with it at that time. I'm just asking to add that one criteria. If that's unacceptable, I'll vote to pass it anyway.
Okay, so yeah, we got it. I got it, Amy. Thank you. So you repeated it, but I'm curious to know what the chief said when he was saying we can't tell them how to run their business, or he didn't want to. What was the actual point there? Was he trying to go into something to?
Well, he
How
wrote
did he word that?
his verbiage is in Tammy's. When he wrote Tammy an email here, and I can read it real quick if that would be.
Yeah, it basically says we can't force somebody to use magnetic signs on their vehicles either.
That was my response. His point is that he stated that he would like my advice, but that he felt the tow company should take credit cards. I, being Chief David, advised him that the policy stated that credit cards were an optional form of payment, and that I didn't know how we could tell a business that
that
they
was
have to
you.
accept credit cards. And my response was,
Oh,
we
now
don't-
I'm reading it, sorry.
yeah, we don't have the ability to tell
Yeah.
them one way or the other. And then it goes on to the points that I've alluded to earlier.
So what do you guys want to do?
I'm still hung up on this word "can't." Like, why can't we? Is the question
I think he's
circling
look.
back around to.
I think he was looking at it from the perspective that the township cannot tell a business what forms of payment that they are going to accept, and that's and I noted that he's absolutely correct. The township cannot tell record company A that you will take credit cards. The township can say, record company A, if you wish to be on our tow list, you will take credit cards, or you will not be allowed on the list. And so I think that's the differentiation there.
Just a quick side check here, Mr. Friel, if you're still on the call, do you have any concern about this?
Yeah, I'm still on. I'm kind of digesting what exactly the issues are. So.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, we're saying we have a criteria for this membership on a list. I would
There are
think
many
that
criteria.
shouldn't be restricted. Well, there's a list of criteria, right?
Right. I guess I'm good with the policy as written by our chief, but
And
with the changes that were made as requested.
and the chief says in his letter that he's not in favor of changing requiring credit cards. I think maybe part of the issue is that we just don't have that many towing companies here in our area. So, I mean, we're limited to what our choices are. And my concern, we've talked about, paying our bills with credit cards, and there's going to be a fee. If we mandate that the tow companies take credit cards, they could lop on a pretty substantial fee for using their credit card to increase the amount that they would have to pay. So
I think that's regulated by law, Mr. Palmer. They can't just tack on any arbitrary fee for taking credit cards. They can only pass through the costs associated with the payment. So if they have to pay a 25-cent transaction fee, whatever percentage of the sale, and that ends up being $27.99, they can pass exactly $27.99 through to the customer to pay those fees. But they can't just make an administrative fee that's way above that because the state said, no, you're not doing that.
And that depends on the service agreement. So ultimately, what's the issue?
The only issue I see is whether or not we should put it as a requirement to be on the list of tow companies that the tow company take credit cards. This seems to be the only sticking point we've got here. Everything else is spot on.
Okay. So that's beyond what the chief's recommended?
Correct.
Do we know as a practical matter whether the chief has a position on that point?
He does. He is against it.
Okay. Is that because, and this, I'm going off the holster here.
We don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah, he
It's
just,
on
it
the
just
email.
doesn't want to make a judgment call in regard to what a business should or should not do.
And you know
for
what,
payment.
nor should he be asked to. I mean,
Right.
that's our job here, right?
Yeah.
So as a practical matter, the available towing entities, do we know, is it even an issue?
I would
I
assume
think
they
it is.
take payment.
One of them is, and I mean, there's going to be some issues for a couple of tow companies because they don't show up with proper attire and et cetera, et cetera. And if they want to continue to be on the list, they're going to have to buy that stuff and start wearing it on site. I believe that Randy's Towing does take credit cards and they're on the list and they do conform to all of the other standards they're on.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it's going to be an issue. I don't believe we're locking ourselves out of having any tow companies on the list. I think we're just raising the bar and saying that if you want to tow for the township, you're going to take the method of payment that, the most common method of payments, cash and credit cards.
Does this stem from the towings that were happening out at the launch sites?
I have no idea. This is just my personal preference. When I've dealt with tow companies,
No, I
and
mean, this issue being even on the agenda.
No, we had to have a tow policy in place.
Oh, the
a
county
wrecker
stopped doing it.
policy. Yeah,
Yeah.
911 is a mandatory.
Gotcha.
Yep. So we had to have it in place. So we're doing what's requested by 911.
Okay. All right. And they don't have any guidelines or protocols?
No, it's up to each individual community to develop a policy, and then they will adhere to that policy.
Okay.
I believe this policy is based from the 911 previous policy. That's what Chief took the policy presented to you is where Chief got the policy that he created is from the 911.
Okay. So I make a motion that we approve the policy as submitted. The towing wrecker policy as submitted.
I'll
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Palmer, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
No,
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
No.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wurstabarth,
No.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion passed. All right, next on is the GIS annual maintenance costs. Tammy?
I believe Nancy is still here. I see your number there.
Nancy, can you unmute?
Oh, she fell asleep with her phone on. Well, I can kind of go over it. So with the GIS contract, there is apparently some annual fees that need to be paid through maintenance and such for the GIS program. And we were kind of given a, well, actually this went through Ann. So, but it was presented with each county having to pay their portion for maintenance yearly. Like I say, I don't know the finer details to this. Nancy was
Right, and
was
I
on
guess
for
I'll,
this
yeah.
this evening, so.
Wasn't trying to put it to you. I mean, Fred Lewis emailed out the supervisors, and obviously in our situation, the supervisor doesn't bring these items to the forefront, the superintendent does. I don't know if it was ever emailed to Mitch or not. But then when I got it, I wanted to confirm the fact that we are 27.1%. Hey, Nancy. There she is. Yeah. So that let me just finish my thought there, Nancy. I just want to confirm with Nancy that we were 27.1% of the parcels, and that again, if we're going to be annually signing up for $609.75, that it was approved by the board. That couldn't be something that we could just approve internally. So with that being said, Nancy is now here to present the information.
Sorry, my cell phone quit working on me.
That's okay.
So yes, so basically, originally when the county had a on-staff equalization director, the original concept was that the equalization department was going to pretty much host the map system, the GIS system for being online, and they were going to take the classes, learn how to do the changes to the shapefile, and do the maintenance for the splits and combinations. The county no longer has an on-staff equalization director, and the company that the county has hired to operate the equalization director's position has set out for bids, I believe it would be, to see what it would cost, what another outside firm would charge to do this. So we are 27% of the county, so the fee would be the $609.75 annually. It is something that could the pricing could change a little bit depending on exact parcel counts. You know, our percentage may deviate a little bit from time to time, but I would not expect a very large deviation in that. They also have a charge of $5 per parcel to make the changes for splits and combinations that are occurring. I believe I gave you an indication of approximately how many we have that have currently taken place since this project originally started. Their suggestion is that we perhaps charge the $5 fee when individuals come in and request a property combination or a property split. We currently do not charge for any of those applications or processes with the exception of the Land Division Act. If the township is going to pass through that cost of the $5 a parcel and begin applying a fee, something to also consider would be, do you want to charge just the $5 or charge something greater to offset the administrative cost of processing those splits and combines in the assessor's office, as well as the various other departments that need to review the application and sign off on it. That's my presentation.
Thank you.
Why is the county starting out saying we're going to take care of this and now they're not taking care of it? I mean, we're starting, this is the second thing on this agenda alone that the county used to do and now they're not doing. And I don't understand why all of a sudden they're stopped. They're not doing all these things and they're passing it on to us all of a sudden.
Well, as far as, I can only speak for any of the issues coming out of the equalization department. Originally, when we started all of these discussions and began this process, I believe, we first started having meetings as far back as 2017. At that point in time, the county had a full-time equalization director. That individual worked 35 hours a week and was in the office all the time. They had a full-time description clerk and a full-time property appraiser. A decision was made. The equalization director wanted a pay increase. The county did not want to give the individual the pay increase. She was offered a job with the state, and the county opted to contract out the equalization director's position. So they no longer have an equalization director in the office. They have, they have a firm located elsewhere in the state, and you simply email them what, requests or whatever, and all of the correspondence is done that way. So they don't have the internal staff, and the company that they've hired to operate as the equalization director, their fees with the county did not include apparently the maintenance or upkeep or hosting of the GIS system. They simply do what is required for that position, and that's all that they do.
So this talk started out with county going to take care of this for us. Everything's going to be great. And then they changed their minds. And so now we've got this project that they said they were going to take care of, and we have to clean it up now. We have to figure out a way to pay for this. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. This is, I mean, I understand it's only $609, but I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, they don't want to take care of the paths. They don't want to, they start these projects and now they expect us to just arbitrarily just start paying for stuff. I mean, should we tell them no?
Well, the offset is that if you tell them no, then something that you would have to consider would be how much would it cost for the township to acquire the license to operate the GIS system, because we're utilizing it under the county's license. We would have to acquire our own license and provide hosting it out there on the internet itself. We do not internally have anyone who is an expert with GIS to do the tweaking and cleaning it up and doing.
Right. Well, apparently neither do they. So is their license even valid still?
As far as I know, yes, it is. They're simply trying to contract out to a different firm the hosting of it, making it available on the internet, and making the corrections for the splits and combines. So it would be a decision of what's going to be most cost effective for us to hire someone else to do it, or to share the cost with them of them hiring someone else to do it. And not that I'm defending any of this of what has happened, because again, this is not the direction it was originally going to go. However, having said that, what you are looking at is they're covering 50% of the cost, and the townships are proportionately sharing the other 50% of the cost. If we were to take this on ourselves and have to hire this same company to do it for us, we would not be paying the $600 a year. We would be paying $1,200 a year or more, because we'd be paying our portion plus the county's half of it.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess I did just.
Well, yeah, we can approve this and then look into it further. I mean, just because we signed up for this year doesn't mean we have to do it in perpetuity, right?
Correct.
And we can push back.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Mr. Lewis over in Plainfield Township, and he said to go on Bay County's site and look at the same company is overseeing their GIS, and it's phenomenal what you can do there. And he thought that this was a no-brainer, that this is a good deal for us, for the townships, because the county is picking up half the cost and then dividing it amongst the townships based on, our usage. So, it's $609 a year to get this service that everybody can use. It's, I I don't see the problem. I think it's a good deal. The county is at least picking up half the cost, and all the townships in the county are paying their proportionate share. I think it's a fair deal.
I don't, I mean, I appreciate that. But at the same time, if I come to you and say, you know, I'm gonna put this garage door on your house and I'm gonna pay for it, and then I come back to you after you've already got all the plans in place and everything is in motion and say, actually, you're gonna have to pay for half of it. Sorry about that. Does that seem like a fair deal? Doesn't seem like a fair deal to me.
Well,
I mean, they were supposed to cover this. This was supposed to be their project that they were going to do, and now we're just all the other townships are supposed to pick up the slack because we're just going to go back on what we said we're going to do. It's just a matter of principle, in my opinion, and it just irritates me. But whatever, I'm good.
Jeremy, I think it's a good point that you're bringing up because it is about, you know, where the tax dollars in Oscoda are going. So I don't deny at all. And I agree with you. I had the same reaction. You know, fortunately, we're in a situation where what we have to choose from right now isn't awful. You know, at least it is a workable solution, as opposed to somehow our investment in the GIS system is you know, aging, not being updated, whatever. We have another way around it. So I guess that's the only thing I want to say is just that there is a little bit of optimism there, but it's another one of those times where I sit here and go, you know, gosh, I really don't like the way the county operates. But I know I'm not alone.
Okay, so with that, are we ready? Is somebody ready to make a motion? Are we more discussion?
I'll make a motion to,
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the GIS cost sharing with the county as presented in the amount for Oscoda Township of $609.75.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
No.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Do
And-
we want,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, do we
Go
want
ahead.
to discuss the $5 or the assessing a fee to cover any of this at this time, or?
I was
come
going
back
to
to
make a motion. I was going to make a motion for that.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I'll make a
Ms.
motion that
McGuire.
we develop a fee for the requests for the combines and the splits to help cover the administration costs a little bit larger than the $5 to offset the fees.
You wanted to, so you want to work on, I'm sorry, I don't know if I understood.
I want to come up with an amount
Okay.
of a fee because we don't charge for splits and
Okay.
for combines. And those have to, Nancy's office has to take time to do that. The other department heads have to look at it. I think it's probably one of the only things that we don't charge for, honestly.
Okay,
But there still is
Are
like
you
paperwork and
proposing-
processing due that has to
great.
happen.
Yeah. Are
And
you
we would
proposing a
have
number then?
Nancy, and we'd come back with that fee then? Is that the proposal would be?
Yeah.
Okay,
See.
I would support that. So there's a motion by Ms. McGuire and support by Ms. Richards to develop a fee as suggested by Nancy to cover some of these costs. And that will come back to the board for review. Any further discussion before roll call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to number 3, the chamber request. Tammy? I think you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that, Ann.
Yep. problem.
I sent the board this morning a request that I had received from the chamber. It had actually gotten stuck in my Barracuda without me knowing, and should have been on the agenda for tonight's meeting had I gotten it through the email. So I would like to suggest that the board approve the use of Furtaw Field for Paul Bunyan Days for the dates of September 17th through the 19th. I also did check and double check all the dates, and there are no reservations for Top Field for those dates.
They're talking about bringing a carnival in there, aren't they?
Yes.
And they need access to the field as early as the 14th. Is that right?
I actually did not dig right in, but normally they would ask for dates earlier, just for setup, but this time they did not.
Uh,
I think that was stated in the.
Well,
in the
yeah,
email.
okay, no, I stand corrected. But yes, so it would be the 14th for the
oh,
crew.
yeah.
Yeah.
So did we ever decide, so they're going to have a carnival in there, they're going to be running a lot of electricity and whatnot. Did we ever figure out how we're billing for that electricity, or are we
Negatory.
still negatory?
They bring their own Jeremy, they bring their own generators.
They do? This company
Yes,
does.
they have.
This is a new company. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
it
know
is.
who they're getting.
I guess it
I
used to
didn't
be.
know it was the new one. The
Amusements.
old one they bring their generators. Most carnivals do. I guess we can find out.
Yeah, they
There's
probably
not
have
power
them,
there
so.
to run those rides at for Top Field. They're gonna have to bring generators.
Right. And then it says that they need water as well. Is there water available over there?
They rent a hydrant meter. So what happens is F&V will go when they get there and attach a hydrant meter, and then we bill after the event.
Cool.
for the water.
Super excited to see the Paul Bunyan Festival coming
Yeah.
back. Hallelujah.
I make a motion, we approve the request as submitted.
I'll
Support.
second that.
I don't know who got that.
Give it to Josh.
Okay.
That wasn't me.
Motion by Mr. Richards, otherwise known as Miss Richards. Motion by Miss Richards, support by Mr. Sutton.
I think that was Tim, wasn't it?
Oh, was it Tim? I'm sorry, Tim.
He hits the same tone as me.
Geez, I guess, Tim, we both thought the wrong thing.
Oh,
Okay, so
man,
support
it
by
sounded-
Mr. Cummings. Sorry, you did sound like Josh there. So support by Mr. Cummings for the chamber request.
You know, and I recommend in the future that we get game show buzzers.
Yeah.
It's much easier for it.
I like
Okay.
I love it.
I am not giving you people buzzers. Wrong answer.
Oh.
Just kidding. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
HE double hockey sticks, yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. All right, moving on to number 4, RCL contract award. I apologize to you, Rick.
That's
for-
fine.
I'm sure you have nothing better to do than wait for us, but
No,
thank you
nothing
very
better
much
to
for
do on a
waiting.
Monday night.
Yeah.
So, yes, in front of you is the recommendation to award the CWSRF project to RCL Construction for their low bid amount of $5,558,800, which includes $192,000 in allowances for the SCADA equipment and utilities. This will complete the bidding process, and along with the bond resolution earlier passed, again, like I said, we would get to a notice to proceed, hopefully by the end of August. So,
Okay, is there any questions for Rick or anybody have a
what was
motion?
that amount again, Rick?
$5,558,800, which includes $192,000 in allowances for SCADA, equipment, and utilities.
Big number. All right, any further questions or anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, to award to award RCL Construction with the sanitary sewer pump station replacement contract in the amount of $558,800, which includes $192,000 for the SCADA equipment and utilities.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wushtebarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the Rockfest road closure.
Good
Steve?
night, everybody.
Good night,
Oh,
Rick.
night.
Good
Thanks,
night,
Rick.
Rick.
Sorry again to keep
Sleep
you.
tight.
Sorry, everyone has emailed out before the board meeting. The Rockfest committee submitted an application to Oscoda County Road Commission to close Evergreen Avenue from US 23 to Lake Street and Lake Street to Water Street intersection, really for safety. They're open to doing that. Again, this would be the total decision would be by the road commission, but they responded to us on Friday of last week and asked that the township board concur that that's okay with the board, and then they will proceed to process our application, either yes or no. So I put a write-up in. We're going to have no parking on the street. It's really for handicap, and it's really to get equipment in and out and just pedestrians. We're supposed to have, planning on having 2,500 to 3,500 people. And there's just a lot of moving parts. So we want to make sure that emergency vehicles can get in and out, residents can get in and out with a guarded gate, but just really trying to close it down for pedestrians with all the people that we have. So just looking for basically a letter that I can take to the road commission if the board so chooses to approve that they would support our application to close those roads for the event.
I think it's great that we're going to close the roads and expand it. That's awesome. But my only concern is if we negate all the parking around that field, where's everybody going to park? Because you're probably going to have to peel out a certain area for the bands to prep their equipment. So there's going to be, you know, a sound stage or whatever for them to get prepped on. That's going to be out there somewhere. So they'd probably be allowed access. Go ahead.
In the past, Rockfest on Evergreen, there was no parking because it was pretty much up to the Oxygen Center, which is pretty much the medical facility there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much the corner. That was all just kind of no parking. It was really pedestrian access because the bands were going in and out of Family Video. Right now, the bands are going to pre-stage elsewhere, but they're going to come in there and drive their truck onto Furtaw Field along US 23, unload and load. And we're hoping to have parking at the old Family Video. We're making contact with the owners of that building to see if we can have parking there. But along Furtaw on Lake Street and then all the way around the field on Water Street, there would be parking. Specifically, the Lake Street area along Furtaw would be for handicap only.
So you would block.
So really,
yeah, sorry.
If you look at the print,
Mm-hmm.
kind of marked up, there would be a gate at the intersection of Lake Street and Water Street.
Right, only allowing handicap.
Handicap and residents at that gate. The
Okay.
gate along Evergreen and US 23 would only be for bands and or emergency vehicles that would have to get in and out. They're both going to be manned and allow access. Nobody is going to be able to park on the street surfaces.
So you would have to have a handicap sticker or have a photo ID that indicated that you lived, or we be like issuing maybe some passes because there's not a ton, but you know, anybody that lives in the condos and the
Or any
houses on
guests
there,
of the,
or the guests of.
yeah, of whatever resort.
Right.
The only
Renters.
properties there are Old Captain's Landing.
Mhm.
There's the house on the corner. I know all the residents there, so, I personally will go talk to them. But we just find out the guests. I don't think it's gonna be an issue for getting residents in and out.
Right,
It's just
besides the
really
condos.
providing
I mean, you got two condo.
Well, but we're not gonna
complexes.
block the condos, because the gate's gonna be, we're not gonna block their access. Because their access is kind of, just a little adjacent to water on the south side.
So you're not gonna block water all the way to the
No,
beach.
we're
You're
not,
gonna,
we're not
yeah,
asking to
okay.
block, we're not asking to block water. It's gonna be a thoroughfare.
So they'd be able to come in on Lake Street and take a right onto water and get into the condos without passing any gates.
Correct.
Cool.
It's really Old Captain's Landing, Linda Fanuff's house, the people who bought the Victorian on the corner, Helen, and then the guests. There's 4 condos on Evergreen.
Okay,
Nice.
so, yeah, I guess I misread it. So the Lake Street and Water Street intersection barrier are only, you're just talking, you're not blocking water at all. You're gonna
No.
have free
No,
access.
we're not blocking,
So if you're,
we're not,
okay.
yeah, we're
All
not
right, then,
blocking
yeah.
water at all. Yep.
All right,
no.
that was my,
Lake
yeah,
Street, yep, Lake Street north of water.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't know, like if you're coming down, how would you turn people around and stuff? But if you can go down Water Street, which is,
So the
it's only got a
closest,
couple residences and,
so the closest non-handicapped parking is going to be a couple blocks
Water
away.
Street. Well, actually along water.
Oh, okay, okay.
That would be the closest. So again, the road commission's going to make the final decision. The issue is the road commission meets very infrequently. And I'd like to get a letter if the board so move to agree with this. I guess a letter from Tammy in support of closing the streets for safety.
okay. Any further questions or is there a motion?
I'll move to write
Yes, I'd make
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm just going to say I would make a motion that the Oscoda Township write a letter of support to the Iosco County Road Commission for the closure of the specified streets for the weekend of Rockfest.
Support. Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire. Any further discussion?
Yes, a question of clarification. When you say the township, are you referring to the superintendent or the supervisor? Who is going to write that
It
letter?
would be the board. The board of trustees is in support of it.
It would be that
got it.
the
somebody still has to
superintendent
draft that,
writes
though.
the letter that the board is in favor
Yeah.
of allowing those road
There we go.
closures.
There we are. Just wanted to be clear what the intention was. Thank you.
Nope, no problem.
Okay, roll call then, please.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Worcesterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion passed. Okay, where are we? Okay, we finished other. We are now on to public comment. This is the section of the board, or I'm sorry, this is the section of the meeting where you can make public comment on something that we've talked about, not talked about in general. Again, that is limited to 4 minutes and you need to state your name and address, please. Is there anybody that has public comment? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Brian Haley, Oscoda.
Okay.
A while back, they had pressed for it, but we didn't get anywhere with it. Now, we're bringing like a la carte through the EIC for our properties. In other words, make them disposable, non-disposable. And the big jewel, of course, is the beach. And I'm really calling, we need to take a vote on this and make it the non-disposable property. want to develop the town properly, but we need safeguards on these things, proper safeguards.
Should I
And
say?
that's not too much. That please don't interrupt. That's not too much to ask.
Should I say then?
And when no,
Oh,
please don't interrupt. Whoever you are. What I'm saying on this, I get some of my time back there. Yeah, are you still with me?
Yes,
We're
I'm
here.
not sure who's
I missed the
interrupting.
whole beginning.
Whoever's got the iPhone that keeps talking, that would be great
Yeah,
if you'd stop
okay.
interrupting Mr.
All right,
Healy.
all right, it's off.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's hard to see. I apologize. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Hey, no big deal. But it is a big deal on the beach, and I know we can be I'm just a fantastic, glorious beachfront community. Keep pushing forward, but we need reassurances. Now, let's not go all negative tonight. But with these violations of the Open Meetings Act on the 14th and with the previous board on the 9th of November, and I don't have all my notes in front of me, but you know where I'm going with that. Jeremy, no matter what you say, there is no trust on this matter. And this is far too important. We have the finest beach on all of Lake Huron. There's no doubt about it. And all we're asking for is protections on that and build all around these things. And talk about FERTA later in the week. I guess there's going to be a prelim meeting workshop. We do have our plan moving forward. I could even work with Dickerson just a little bit, but I'm not going to, mixed use is not going to, we don't have enough acreage there for our plans with any mixed use. But I don't want to be pressed by that. Now, we need some room here. We have to be honest with each other. How FERTA was approached for 3 years now, really. And that's not all you guys. But it's continuing. Take a pause. Concentrate on your water loss. I mean, concentrate on some of those things. Let Dickerson concentrate on this new hotel you got going on down there. Let Dickerson fully concentrate on more apartments that we hear that we need all the time, and I think he's advancing on that. Let him concentrate on all that. Take a pause on this. My plan will be out November 30th. That's the drop dead date, and it'll be all laid out. That's the deal. All right. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, anybody else have a public comment? Anyone? I see a raised hand. Go ahead, Larry. You should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. I like what Brian said. Let's not be all negative tonight. Fantastic. So for those of you that aren't aware, we've got a national fishing tournament coming July 22nd through the 24th with Bass Pro Shops in Cabela. Holy crap, what a big deal. I think that we should be praising things like that every board meeting when these things pop up. I think that we should pass resolutions announcing the level of support that we have as a community for these types of events. And we need to start taking an interest in attracting to the law of attraction by becoming what we want to see here, instead of all the fighting and infighting and all that good stuff that we see on those things that we call the interwebs. So as part of that, excellent parade. Thank you, Oscoda Township, for allowing the Chamber of Commerce and the Eagles Club and all the other participating organizations to have a fantastic parade. If you missed the parade, we actually live broadcasted that. And if you see the chat box, you'll see a little link there that can take you to it. Over 3,300 people that weren't able to attend saw that Oscoda Township had a magnificent parade. And inside our community group, which is Oscoda Community Group, which is also showing up in your little chat box there under Groups Oscoda, a gentleman that said, and I'm going to quote him, he states, "Hi, Oscoda community. Pardon my late post on the July 4th parade, but I wanted to share some fun pictures I took. 50 years on this earth, and that was the first parade I've ever attended. Thank you for making it fun and so welcoming. Oh, I absolutely love my visits to your town." That was Paul Barker. He posted that. I think that we need to start to accentuate the positive. I think that we need to make sure that we're taking an active role in accentuating these things. We're running collectively, a group of us, a ton of different channels that all we do is promote Oscoda with our own money, our own funds. We run advertisement downstate and areas that will attract day walkers or day vacationers. And we do our best to make sure that they get the assets in their hands that will allow them to navigate our community. So thank you, Oscoda Township, for allowing such a good fireworks display. A ton of community members have sent us messages, and I wanted to pass on that everybody enjoyed that. So thank you again.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, anybody else? Public comment? I see Dirk. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey guys, this has been a pretty good meeting, and especially and really enjoyed the last one. I'm going to be a little scatterbrained because so much happened, especially in the last 30 minutes. I want to make some comments on those and maybe get to my personal major issue, which is the hotel on the beach. But folks, Rockfest is a great example of how hundreds and thousands of people can be drawn to our area with events at Paul Bunyan Park. Noise is a concern, as you were discussing, which is why I think, you know, is another reason why putting a multi-use in a family or a housing thing on Fertile Field is going to curtail events like Rockfest simply because of a noise issue. I mean, if I lived there, that would drive me crazy. Now, what I would suggest, though, is when we have events like that, when we use the field, is set those events to, you know, project the sound north over to Main Street there. And we have plenty of parking. I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I forgot to reset the timer. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Let me
Go ahead.
know too when I'm close to my 4 minutes in.
Yeah.
We have there's plenty of parking. We have parking on both sides of most of our streets in the beach community there. Not to mention our township parking areas. Super fantastic to see Paul Bunyan coming back this year again. I would suggest, though, we look at bringing it back to the middle of summer. If you go down to the Oscoda Press, read some of the stories from the 70s, we would get 10, 20, 30,000 people. It was one of the premier events during the summer here in Michigan. Thanks for approving the GIS. That's an example, in addition to cell phone service, especially data cell phone service, of things that need to be in our community for businesses to come into town. I was shocked that there wasn't a GIS system in place. Again, thanks to all of the folks, especially the last few weeks, that at least are giving the appearance of getting along together and at least beginning to listen. When, though, it comes to folks, I have spent literally in the last 3 months dozens and dozens of hours walking the beach, walking that area. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people on the beach, at Fertile Field, like during the parade station, which we were working on. I've talked to people at Rogers. Have you guys walked down to the beach and sat there on the west side of the parking lot, right where those pylons are? If you didn't notice in your packet, that footprint of the hotel is right at those pylons. There's going to be 4 stories up. I've been there in the evenings. You won't see the sunset from the pier anymore. I'm probably close to the end of my time, but I urge everybody to treat ourselves as people. Before you start spouting off and attacking somebody on Facebook, please imagine you're talking to them while you're waiting in line to get in the Lake Theater or get an ice cream cone down at Park Dairy. We need to be kind to each other, regardless of affiliation politically or organizationally or whatever. But let's work on thinking before we post, especially online. And again, thanks, guys. But continue to listen to us. Walk that whole Lake Street block at least twice and think about the shadow and the parking lot that's going to place right in the middle of our classic beach community. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, I believe there's another raised hand. Rick, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I noticed that there's a public EIC meeting at the F41 Pavilion this Thursday. I was under the assumption that it was an EIC meeting was going to be held out there. I was informed by Todd that that's just a special meeting, and that future EIC board meetings and planning commission meetings are not going to be public. And that's due to the fact that he said the Oscoda Township board didn't want the other boards to open until they did to the public. Seeing that we're not locked down, everything got released July 1st. I find it strange that we're coming up with reasons not to do these public meetings. And the Zoom thing is a good thing, but when people haven't met a lot of the township new board members and they're not using video feeds, we got to try to guess who's talking based on their voice. And the same thing with the planning commission, EIC, it's very difficult. The EIC meeting that's going to be this Thursday for the public is also not going to be broadcast via Zoom. So I was under the assumption that they wanted public opinion regarding FERTON. That's what that meeting was for. We haven't had any public meetings or any kind of seeking info from the boards regarding any of the other properties such as the beach and wanting our opinions to be shown. I would also just like to say that I think these public meetings are to wait another 2 months. You know, I know you guys are looking for a place. I don't see a problem with the theater, but that put aside, I don't understand why the planning commission and EIC are being told that they can't have public meetings until the township board is having public meetings. I'd kind of like to challenge the legality of just saying we're not going to do public meetings because we don't want to. I understand you guys might have a problem with people, but I don't think that's the issue with the EIC or the planning commission. And being that the special one this Thursday regarding FERTA was okayed by the lawyer is what I was told from Todd. I don't see why the planning commission and these meetings cannot be in public. People have never met these people. Like I said, they don't do video feeds. They don't know who's talking. I got to try to guess who's talking based on their voice. I'd just like to see the public meetings come back, and hopefully at this meeting with the EIC regarding public opinion regarding FERTA, I hope that really gets back to you guys, and don't be in a rush to take the first LOI, or really listen to the community if that's what you're going to do. Every board member, I'd ask that you vote the majority of the way that the people want. You know, you represent us. And if you're going to represent the minority and do things because that's your personal opinion, then, you know, you're not really doing your job. You got to represent the majority of us. And a lot of us feel that you're not doing that by placing the property on the disposable list and still open to taking LOIs. So I'd just like y'all to think about that, who you represent, and are you really representing the majority? And if not, why? Thank you for letting me speak, and I'm done.
Okay, thanks. You had like 12 seconds left. All right. That being said, Bob, you should be able to unmute yourself. Hey.
Hey, Robert Tazer up here on Hillcrest Drive, the beautiful north end of Van Etten Lake. I want to talk about a subject that I talked about approximately a year ago, a little over a year ago, when the county decided not to renew a millage for the gypsy moth infestation in the spring. For that, I talked about that a little over a year ago at the podium, and if anybody has noticed, if you go around the township right now, you see all of our leaves are gone off of our trees. You notice that even the pine trees now are being devastated. Those pine trees won't come back after those pine needles are eaten off by these gypsy moths, caterpillars. It's too late to spray or do anything about that this year, but it is at the cycle of their lifespan right now where they are now cocooning out and becoming moths, and they'll be laying those eggs on those trees. And if you haven't been affected by the gypsy moths in your particular area this year, I guarantee you will next year. I mean, if you come up here on the north side of the lake, there's no leaves left. There's going to be thousands of pine trees that are never going to come back. So hopefully our oaks and our maples and all the other trees will be able to survive this. And they should start rebutting it towards the end of July, but it's not going to stop it from next year. And Plainfield Township is out there. They're spraying. It's super bad this year. I mean, just as you go over by the golf courses and you can actually smell the decaying bodies of caterpillars. That's how bad it is. So I would hope that the township maybe can look into this. If we can't afford to spray as a township, at least look into, I understand there are private places out there that can give discount rates for communities, for subdivisions, for private individuals where they need a number of people that are willing to pay, and it's not that expensive, but people just got to know about it, that it's available. And I would hope that maybe the township can help us in the community to attack these gypsy moths and save our natural forests out here and our trees and on our properties and keep our values up. And because it's really is bad up here. If you haven't looked at it, go up at 41 towards King's Corner. Look at all the empty. It looks like wintertime up there. So that's my comment today. I hope you really do help us out in some way and trying to figure out what we can do to get these things early next year so it doesn't wipe out our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else have public comment? Okay, I'm gonna do last call for public comment.
Sure, I'll make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Mark Miller, First Street, Oscoda. Wanted to thank Bob Taser for speaking up about the gypsy moth situation. I've seen what it's done in other states. And since the county has imploded since January 20th, I asked that the township consider doing some sort of helicopter spraying.
Okay. Anything else? Are you finished, Mark?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. Great. Anybody else for public comment? Last call. Okay, hearing none. Board comment? Is there any board members?
Yeah, and this is Bill. I just have a couple of quick comments. One, I'd like to make everybody out there and the board aware, the Iosco Exploration Trail. We've partnered with MEDC for what's called a patronicity grant. This patronicity, we are going for a $50,000 patronicity grant. And if we are able to raise $50,000, the MEDC will match that, which will give us $100,000, which is what we're short right now, to extend the bike path from Rio Road out to Old Orchard Park. The difficult part of this patronicity grant is it's only good for 60 days. So it went live July 1st. So we only have until the end of August to make this happen. Anybody out there that would like to donate to the bike path out there, you can go to patronicity.com/IET and make your donation, or you can write a check, make checks payable to the Iosco Exploration Trail, Post Office Box 563, Hale, Michigan 48739. This is an important I can't express how important this bike path is to get our downtown area connected to Old Orchard Park. It will be a huge economic boost to the downtown area, and like I said, we have the funding in place to get to Rio Road. It's just the remainder from Rio Road out to the Old Orchard Park that we're short, and this would cover that. So I'm hoping everybody out there will make a contribution and help us out with that. The other point that I wanted to make, to bring up to the rest of the board, and there was information in the packet, and this was brought up, and I brought this up some time ago at a board meeting. It has to do with the water loss report, the amount of water that we're losing in our system. And if you look at what was presented in the packet, for the first 6 months of this year, the township has paid for 106,536 gallons of water, and we've only sold 63 million, which means we've lost 43,376,689 gallons of water in 6 months. Now, I don't know where that water's going. I don't know if we've got, pipes that are leaking, if we've got people that have turned on water to their residences or businesses illegally. But I believe we need to take some action from this board to try and curtail this amount of water loss. I mean, you're talking about 40% of the water we're paying for, we're losing. And we can't continue to have that. So I would hope that in the future, the board we can take up some action to try and curtail that loss. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else? Board?
Yes,
wise?
I have
Sorry.
one.
Mm-hmm.
You hear me? This is
Yes.
Steve. And I'd like you to address this. I've been on vacation last week, but got back, had some discussions with people, and I'm told that late last week you instructed our EIC director to go back to the Amerilodge people, Amerilodge group, concerning the Lake Street LOI, and basically offer up for Tough Field in replacement of what we approved as a motion. So I'm kind of concerned on two fronts here. One, no individual board member can circumvent a board motion. Number two, the EIC director reports to the superintendent and works at the pleasure of the board. If there's going to be any change, it needs to come back to the board. So I'd like you to address that to the board, please.
You'd like me to address the board right now? But I guess I don't understand the question.
I'm very concerned that you instructed our EIC director to go back to the Amerilodge group to basically change the LOI.
No, that is
From
not
your
what I
instruction.
asked. No, that is not my instruction. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it, Mr. Westerbarth, and the entire board.
Well, let's put it as an agenda item on the next meeting.
Whatever you
very
desire.
concerning. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Nobody? Okay. I guess, Steve, you threw that out there. Actually, in the meeting where we were discussing the LOI and the beach park, I asked the question about Furtaw Field and whether or not they were interested in it. And they indicated they were, but didn't want to deal with the public in the grave concerns. So I talked to Todd and just asked him in regard to whether or not we could still have further discussions on that location. Didn't ask him to change the LOI, didn't ask him to do anything. So.
Well, Todd told me you instructed him to call them to talk to him about it. So I guess we'll talk about it at the next meeting, and I'd like to have Todd here. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, anybody else? With that, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Everyone.
Night.
Everybody.